Claire Herskowitz was a 40-year-old woman who lived in Boca Raton, Florida. She was a stay-at-home mom and a part-time internet marketer. Claire was known for her lively personality and strong commitment to her family. She had a husband named David, who was 45, and 2 children, Greed, 12, and Block, 9. Claire was very close to her family and friends and had built a successful career working from home, helping small businesses improve their online presence. She was good at what she did and enjoyed helping others succeed. Her work was featured on local business websites and in the Boca Raton Tribune. Claire's husband, David, owned a fishing tour company. To the outside world, he seemed like a devoted husband and father. However, as we will discover later, David had many secrets. Claire was very active in her community. She volunteered at Green and Block School, Pinecrest School, and was part of the PTA. She helped organize school events and fundraisers. She also loved to bake and often brought cookies and cakes to school events and community gatherings. In the days before her death, Claire was busy planning a family vacation to Disney World. She was looking forward to spending quality time with her family. Claire also had dreams of expanding her internet marketing business. She was working on a new project for a local restaurant and was excited about the possibilities it brought. Claire's life seemed perfect to many. She had a loving family, a successful career, and was well-liked in her community. However, everything changed in March 2016 when she discovered a dark secret about her husband's double life. This discovery would lead to her tragic and untimely death. On the morning of March 18, 2016, at around 8 o'clock a.m., Mark Stevens, Claire Herskowitz's next-door neighbor, made a shocking discovery. Mark, a retired police officer, was out for his usual morning walk when he noticed something strange at the Herskowitz house. The garage door was partially open, which was unusual for the typically tidy and cautious Claire. Curious and concerned, Mark approached the garage. As he got closer, he saw a pool of blood on the floor. His heart raced as he peered inside. There, lying motionless on the cold concrete, was Claire. She had been brutally attacked, her body covered in blood. Mark's years of police training kicked in. He quickly assessed the scene, noting the tire iron near Claire's body, which was likely the murder weapon. Mark immediately called 911, his voice steady but filled with urgency. He then waited outside the garage to ensure nothing was disturbed, keeping a watchful eye on the scene until the authorities arrived. The sound of sirens filled the air as the Boca Raton Police Department rushed to the scene. The garage was a gruesome sight. Blood splatters covered the floor and walls, evidence of a violent struggle. Claire's body showed signs of a brutal attack, with multiple wounds suggesting she had fought hard against her attacker. The detectives carefully documented the scene, taking photographs and collecting evidence. They noted the position of the tire iron and took swabs for DNA testing. As they worked, neighbors began to gather outside, whispering in shock and disbelief. The news of Claire's death spread quickly through the community, leaving everyone stunned. The detectives interviewed Mark Stevens, who described his discovery of the body. His calm and detailed account helped them piece together the initial timeline of the crime. Inside the house, Claire's children were still asleep, unaware of the tragedy that had unfolded just outside their door. The detectives made sure the children were taken to a safe place and arranged for them to stay with family members. As the investigation began, the community of Boca Raton was left reeling from the loss of a beloved mother and friend. When the Boca Raton Police Department arrived at the scene, it was around 8:15 a.m. on March 18, 2016. The team, led by Detectives Sarah Pallett and Yandy Ruse, quickly got to work. Detective Pallett, known for her meticulous attention to detail, and Detective Ruse, with his sharp instincts, were determined to solve the case swiftly. The garage where Claire Herskowitz's body was found was a gruesome sight. Blood splatters covered the walls and floor, indicating a violent struggle. Claire had been bludgeoned to death with a tire iron, which lay nearby, covered in blood. The scene suggested a sudden and brutal attack with no signs of a break-in, pointing to someone she knew. The detectives first secured the area, ensuring no one could contaminate the crime scene. They documented everything with photographs and detailed notes. Forensic specialists arrived and began collecting evidence, including the tire iron, fingerprints, and DNA samples. They also took swabs from various surfaces to look for any other traces of the attacker. Detective Pallett noted the chaos in the garage, a spilled toolbox, scattered papers, and a broken family photo. These details were crucial as they painted a picture of the struggle Claire endured. The detectives also found Claire's cell phone, which they hope would provide more clues about her final moments. As the investigation continued, the detectives moved inside the house. They checked the home for any additional evidence or signs of forced entry but found none. This reinforced their belief that Claire knew her attacker. Detectives Pallet and Ruiz interviewed the neighbors, including Mark Stevens, who had discovered the body. Mark provided a detailed account of his morning routine and how he stumbled upon the horrific scene. His calm demeanor and clear observations were invaluable to the investigation. The detectives also spoke with Claire's children, Greed and Black, in a gentle manner, ensuring they felt safe. The kids were taken to a relative's house, away from the traumatic environment. Detectives reached out to David Herskowitz, Claire's husband, who was at his office. His reaction was notably composed, which raised some initial suspicions. Detective Pallet and Ruiz reviewed security footage from nearby homes. They hoped to find any clues or suspicious activity around the time of the murder. They also planned to analyze Claire's phone records and social media for any unusual interactions or threats. As the day progressed, the detectives remained focused and determined. They knew solving Claire Herskowitz's murder was critical for the grieving family and the shocked community of Boca Raton. Every piece of evidence, no matter how small, was vital in their quest for justice. The first suspect in Claire Herskowitz's murder was her husband, David Herskowitz. At 45 years old, David owned a fishing tour company in Boca Raton. Everyone who knew him, David seemed like a devoted husband and father. He was meticulous, introverted, and kept his personal life private from everyone, including his family. However, as detectives began to dig deeper, they discovered that David had been hiding a lot from them. David had been having an affair and was also in deep financial trouble. His fishing tour company, which seemed successful on the surface, was struggling. He had taken out several loans and was facing mounting debts. These secrets painted a different picture of the man who seemed so dedicated to his family. Detectives Pallet and Ruiz brought David in for questioning on the afternoon of March 18, 2016. David appeared calm, but his demeanor was detached. He denied any involvement in Claire's death and claimed he was at his office during the time of the murder. However, his calmness seemed suspicious to the detectives, considering the brutal nature of the crime and the loss of his wife. David's alibi was weak. He said he was alone in his office working on paperwork. He couldn't provide any solid evidence to support his whereabouts. Detectives Pallet and Ruiz pressed him about his affair and financial issues. David admitted to the affair but insisted it had nothing to do with Claire's murder. He became slightly agitated when discussing his financial problems but maintained his innocence throughout the interrogation. The detectives also looked into David's phone records and emails. They found numerous calls and messages between him and his mistress, Jennifer Green, coincidentally Claire's best friend. This connection added another layer to the investigation and gave the detectives more questions about David's possible motives. Neighbors and friends were interviewed, and many were shocked to hear about David's double life. They described him as quiet and reserved, a stark contrast to Claire's outgoing personality. Some neighbors mentioned seeing David act nervously in recent weeks, which raised more red flags. The detectives knew they needed more evidence to either implicate or clear David. They continued to analyze his financial records, hoping to find a link to the crime. They also planned to question Jennifer Green to see if she knew anything more about David's potential involvement in Claire's murder. As the investigation progressed, David Herskowitz remained a key suspect. His secrets and strange behavior kept the detectives on high alert, knowing that unraveling his story was crucial to solving the case. The second suspect in the investigation was Jennifer Green, Claire Herskowitz's best friend and colleague. Jennifer was 45 years old, ambitious, and known for her competitive nature. She had been working with Claire on various internet marketing projects and had shared many personal details about her life with her. Little did Claire know Jennifer was also having an affair with her husband, David Herskowitz, a fact that put her under intense scrutiny. Jennifer and Claire had been close friends for years, sharing not only professional interests but also personal struggles. Jennifer had confided in Claire about her troubled marriage, which had created a bond between them. However, the revelation of her affair with David suggested a more complicated relationship, potentially filled with jealousy and rivalry. On March 19, 2016, detectives Pallet and Ruiz brought Jennifer in for questioning. Jennifer was visibly shaken but cooperative. She admitted to the affair with David but claimed she had nothing to do with Claire's murder. She described her relationship with Claire as mostly supportive but acknowledged moments of tension, especially when discussing their respective marriages. Jennifer's motive could stem from several factors. Her affair with David was a significant betrayal of Claire's trust, and if Claire had discovered it, it could have led to intense conflict. Additionally, Jennifer's ambitious nature and desire for success could have led to envy and resentment. During the interrogation, Jennifer was defensive but not overly aggressive. She answered the detective's questions but was careful with her words. She gloated to police that David had told her he was planning to leave Claire and that their relationship would soon become official. This added another layer to the investigation, as it suggested Jennifer might have felt threatened by Claire's presence in David's life. Detectives Pallet and Ruiz also examined Jennifer's phone records and emails. They found numerous messages between her and David discussing both personal and professional matters. Some messages hinted at their plans for the future, further complicating the case. Friends and colleagues of Jennifer were interviewed, and many expressed shock at her involvement with David. They described Jennifer as driven and focused on her career, but were surprised to learn about the affair. Some mentioned that Jennifer had seemed more stressed and secretive in recent months. The detectives knew that while Jennifer's affair with David was significant, it did not directly link her to Claire's murder. They continued to gather evidence, hoping to uncover more about her role in the events leading up to Claire's death. Jennifer's actions and motives remained a critical piece of the puzzle, keeping her firmly in the spotlight of the investigation. On March 21, 2016, at around 3:00 p.m., the Boca Raton Police Department received a breakthrough in the case. The weather was clear and warm, typical for Florida. Detective Sarah Pallet was at the station when a forensic analyst named Lisa Kiang called with urgent news. They had found new evidence that could significantly impact the investigation. The evidence was discovered during a detailed analysis of Claire Herskowitz's cell phone. Forensic experts recovered deleted text messages between Claire and an unknown number. The messages revealed that Claire had discovered a shocking secret. Her husband David was running secret gambling and sex trafficking operation. Claire had planned to go to the police with this information, a motive for her murder. David's fishing tour company was actually a cover for a secret gambling and sex trafficking operations, a sort of brothel casino on a yacht. There, David would entertain his rich male clients with roulettes, slots, and young men and women, mostly from Eastern Europe, who were lured to America by being told by David they would be working as fashion models. Detectives Pallet and Ruiz immediately recognized the importance of this new evidence. They quickly called a team meeting to discuss the findings. The messages were explicit, detailing Claire's shock and determination to expose David's illegal activities. This information provided a clear motive for David to silence Claire. The detectives reviewed the messages and noted the dates and times. Claire had discovered the operation just days before her murder. The urgency in her messages indicated she was afraid and felt a pressing need to act quickly. This revelation added a new layer of complexity to the case and strengthened the suspicion against David. Detectives Pallet and Ruiz also noted that some messages mentioned a woman named Olga Vereskova. Claire had been in contact with Olga, who had traveled from Chelyabinsk, Russia, to confront David about her missing daughter, Anastasia. Anastasia had been lured to America with promises of a modeling career but ended up trapped in David's trafficking operation. The police also intensified their efforts to track down David's financial records and communications. They hoped to uncover more evidence that could tie him directly to both the trafficking operation and Claire's murder. The detectives reached out to federal agencies for assistance, knowing the case had now expanded beyond the simple domestic incident. As the investigation continued, the new evidence gave the detectives a clearer picture of the motive behind Claire's murder. David's secret life and illegal activities were at the heart of the case. The detectives remained focused and determined, knowing that uncovering the full extent of David's operations was key to solving Claire's murder and bringing justice to her family. The third suspect in the investigation was Olga Vereskova. Olga was 61 years old and had traveled all the way from Chelyabinsk, Russia, to find out what had happened to her daughter, Anastasia. Anastasia was just 18 when she came to America, believing she would be working as a fashion model. Instead, she became a victim in David Herskowitz's secret gambling and sex trafficking operation. On March 22, 2016, Detectives Sarah Pallet and Yandy Ruiz brought Olga in for questioning. Olga was visibly upset and determined to find justice for her daughter. She spoke through a translator, explaining how Anastasia had disappeared shortly after arriving in the United States. Olga had tried everything to find her daughter, even hiring private investigators, but all leads had pointed back to David Herskowitz. Olga described her daughter as bright, ambitious, and full of dreams. Anastasia had been excited about her modeling career and looked forward to a new life in America. When Anastasia stopped communicating, Olga knew something was terribly wrong. Her determination to find the truth had led her to sell everything to fly Florida and confront David directly. During the interrogation, Olga was emotional but composed. She recounted how she had met with Claire Herskowitz in the days leading up to Claire's murder. Claire had been sympathetic and promised to help Olga expose David's operation. This meeting had occurred just 2 days before Claire's death, making Olga a key witness. Olga's motive for wanting to confront David was clear. She wanted answers about her daughter's disappearance and was willing to do anything to get them. However, the detectives found no evidence linking Olga to Claire's murder. Her emotional state and detailed account of her search for Anastasia painted her as a grieving mother rather than a suspect. The detectives continued to press Olga for more information about David's operations. Olga revealed that she had gathered documents and records about David's illegal activities, hoping to use them to pressure him into revealing Anastasia's whereabouts. She handed over these documents to the detectives, providing crucial evidence to further their investigation. Friends and acquaintances of Olga in Russia described her as a determined and caring mother. They said she was relentless in her search for Anastasia and had exhausted all resources to find her. Her journey to America was her last hope to uncover the truth. With all of his testimony and the documents she provided, Detectives Pallet and Ruiz had more evidence to connect David to both the trafficking operation and Claire's murder. Pulviz's involvement highlighted the international scope of David's crimes and the far-reaching impact of his actions. As the investigation progressed, Olga remained a crucial part of the case. Her unwavering determination to find justice for her daughter and her cooperation with the detectives brought them closer to uncovering the full extent of David's criminal activities. On March 24, 2016, after piecing together all the evidence, the Boca Raton Police Department identified David Herskowitz as Claire's murderer. David, 45, owned a fishing tour company, but his seemingly perfect life hid a dark secret. His operation was a cover for illegal gambling and sex trafficking. David's motive for killing Claire was clear. Claire had discovered his secret life and planned to expose him to the authorities. Fearing the collapse of his personal and professional life, David decided to silence her permanently. The police gathered enough evidence to arrest David, including his phone records, financial documents, and the deleted text messages between him and Claire. At 10:00 a.m., Detectives Sarah Pallet and Yandy Ruiz arrived at David's office. The atmosphere was tense as they approached. David was in a meeting, discussing his business plans when the detectives entered. They calmly informed David of his arrest. David's reaction was a mix of shock and resignation. He didn't resist but maintained his innocence, claiming that he was being framed. The detectives handcuffed David and read him his rights. They then escorted him out of the building, where a crowd of curious onlookers and media had already gathered. News of the arrest spread quickly through the community, leaving everyone in disbelief. Claire's family was devastated but relieved that the police had finally identified her killer. The community of Boca Raton shared their pain, mourning the loss of a beloved mother and friend. The police continued their investigation to ensure they have a solid case against David. They uncovered more details about his illegal activities, linking him to the gambling and sex trafficking operation. The evidence painted a clear picture of a man desperate to protect his double life, willing to go to any lengths to keep his secrets hidden. David's arrest was a significant step towards justice for Claire. It also brought hope to Olga Vereskova, who still sought answers about her daughter Anastasia. The police reassured Olga that they would continue to investigate David's criminal network, hoping to find more victims and bring them justice as well. As David was led away in a police car, the residents of Boca Raton hoped for a swift and fair trial. Claire's murder had rocked the community, but her courage in uncovering David's crimes inspired many. The detectives remained committed to seeing the case through, determined to honor Claire's memory by ensuring her killer faced the full extent of the law. The trial of David Herskowitz began on August 1, 2017 in Boca Raton. The prosecution was led by Assistant District Attorney Karen Whitfield, known for her tenacity and keen sense of justice. Karen, 38, had a reputation for being tough on crime and was determined to see David held accountable for Claire's murder as other illegal activities. The prosecution's argument centered on the mountain of evidence against David. Karen presented the deleted text messages between Claire and David, financial records showing his debts, and testimonies from various witnesses, including Claire's family and friends. The jury listened intently as Karen detailed how David's secret life led him to kill his wife to prevent her from exposing his illegal activities. On the defense side was attorney Richard Palmer, a 45-year-old known for his sharp legal mind and calm demeanor. Richard argued that David was being framed and that the evidence was circumstantial. He tried to cast doubt on the validity of the text messages and suggested that other individuals involved in David's illegal operations had more to gain from Claire's death. Throughout the trial, Claire's family was present, their faces etched with grief and determination. They watched every moment, hoping for justice. Michelle, Claire's sister, often wiped away tears as she listened to the details of her sister's last days and the brutality of her murder. The trial lasted 3 weeks, with both sides presenting compelling arguments. However, the prosecution's evidence was overwhelming. On August 24, 2017, the jury delivered a unanimous verdict. David Herskowitz was found guilty of first-degree murder, illegal gambling, and sex trafficking. During the sentencing hearing, the judge condemned David's actions and sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom was filled with a mixture of relief and sadness. Claire's family felt a sense of closure, knowing that David would spend the rest of his life behind bars, but the pain of losing Claire remained. The verdict had a profound impact on the community of Boca Raton. Many felt that justice had been served, but the case also highlighted the dark underbelly of illegal activities that could exist in seemingly quiet neighborhoods. It served as a reminder of the importance of vigilance and community support. For Claire's friends and family, the sentencing marked the end of a painful chapter. They found solace in the fact that Claire's courage to uncover the truth had not been in vain. The community rallied around them, offering support and remembering Claire as a loving mother, wife, and friend who stood up for what was right. The trial of David Herskowitz would be remembered as a case that brought a community together and shone a light on the hidden dangers within. Claire's legacy of bravery and justice continued to inspire those who knew her. After David Herskowitz was sentenced to life in prison on August 24, 2017, the lives of everyone involved in the case continued to unfold in significant ways. The trial had brought closure to the case, but it also left lasting impacts on the people affected. Claire Herskowitz's family received support from local counseling services and community groups, which helped them navigate their grief. The community of Boca Raton, shaken by the case, came together to support the Herskowitz family, organizing fundraisers and memorials in Claire's honor. Grieve and Block were placed in the care of their extended family. They continued to attend school at their local school, Calusa Elementary, where teachers and counselors provided extra support. The children struggled with the loss of their mother, but were gradually adapting with the help of therapy and their supportive relatives. Olga Vereskova, who had traveled from Russia in search of her daughter, Anastasia, found some closure with David's conviction. Although Anastasia had not been found, Olga continued her efforts to raise awareness about human trafficking. She collaborated with organizations such as the Polaris Project and participated in speaking engagements to shed light on the issue. Her advocacy helped bring attention to similar cases and supported other families facing similar tragedies. Jennifer Green, who had been a suspect but was later cleared, faced a challenging road as well. The revelation of her affair with David and its connection to the murder had impacted her personal and professional life. She took a leave of absence from her job and eventually moved away from Boca Raton to start anew. Her former colleagues and friends offered support, though the affair and its consequences left a lasting mark on her reputation. The trial of David Herskowitz left a deep impact on Boca Raton. It highlighted the dangers of hidden criminal activities and the importance of community vigilance. Claire Herskowitz's bravery in uncovering David's secrets had led to his arrest and conviction, but the ripples of the case continued to affect many lives. As time passed, the community worked to heal and remember Claire for her courage and commitment to justice. Her story remained a powerful reminder of the strength of the human spirit and the ongoing fight against injustice. The tragic story of Claire Herskowitz serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of hidden lives and the devastating impact of secrets. Lisa Turner was a 45-year-old stay-at-home mom who lived in Pineville, North Carolina, an upper-middle-class suburb of Charlotte. Lisa was very active in her community. She was a member of the local PTA, where she organized fundraisers and events for the school. She was also a devoted member of her church's choir, where she sang every Sunday. Lisa had a friendly demeanor and was always willing to help others. She was considered a pillar of the community, someone everyone could rely on. Lisa had once dreamed of becoming a teacher, but those dreams were put on hold when she married Rod Turner. a successful corporate lawyer, and decided to focus on raising their two children, Carmel, 17, and Militia, 14. Despite her busy life, Lisa always found time for her family and friends. Behind her perfect suburban life, Lisa felt unfulfilled and lonely. Rob, 48, had been working long hours at his job, dealing with high-profile banks and helping them find legal loopholes to evict people from their homes during the Great Recession. This created a distance between them, and Lisa often felt like she was living in a gilded cage. She craved excitement and attention, something she wasn't getting at home. In the days before her death, Lisa was busy with her usual activities. She was planning the church's upcoming Easter event, making decorations and organizing volunteers. She was also seen at the local Starbucks, sipping a latte and chatting with friends. To the outside world, Lisa seemed happy and content, but inside she was struggling. Lisa's personality was warm and welcoming. She had a smile for everyone and a kind word for those in need. Her friends described her as generous and caring. She dreamed of a life where she felt truly loved and appreciated. However, little did anyone know Lisa had found this attention in the arms of Jason Brace Collins, the 18-year-old son of her neighbor. Lisa's secret affair with Jason provided the thrill she longed for. She documented her feelings and experiences in a hidden journal, expressing the excitement and guilt she felt. In her final days, Lisa was torn between her duties as a mother and wife and her desire for something more. However, on the morning of March 21, 2012, Lisa's life would be tragically cut short, leaving the community of Pinville in shock and mourning. On the morning of March 21, 2012, around 7:30 a.m., Rob Turner came home early from a business trip to surprise his wife. He had been away in New York City for a meeting with a big bank client and took an early flight back to Pinville. Expecting to find Lisa making breakfast for their kids, Rob instead walked into a scene of horror. When Rob entered the kitchen, he found Lisa lying on the floor in a pool of blood. The room was a mess with broken dishes and blood splatters on the walls and floor. Lisa had been shot and stabbed multiple times. Even more shocking, the number 3-04 was carved into her stomach. Rob, in complete shock, dropped his suitcase and rushed to her side, but it was clear she was already gone. Rob immediately called 911. His voice trembled as he told the dispatcher about the scene he had walked into. He kept repeating, she's gone, over and over. The dispatcher tried to keep him calm and instructed him to wait for the police to arrive. Rob stayed by Lisa's side, crying and holding her hand, unable to comprehend what had happened. The first police officer arrived within minutes. Officer Diller, who was on patrol nearby, responded to the call. When she entered the house and saw the scene, she was stunned but quickly took control of the situation. She guided Rob away from the body and secured the area, waiting for the detectives to arrive. Rob Turner was still in shock. He could barely speak as the officers tried to question him about the events leading up to his discovery. He kept saying he couldn't believe this was happening and that Lisa was gone. Lisa's body was taken to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy, while the detectives began their investigation. The news of Lisa's murder quickly spread through Pinville. It was reported on local TV stations like WSOC TV, and neighbors gathered outside the Turner home, trying to understand how such a terrible thing could happen in their quiet community. The Pinville police arrived quickly after Rob Turner's 911 call on March 21, 2012. Officer Natera Miller, who was patrolling nearby, was the first on the scene. She found Rob in a state of shock, holding Lisa's hand. Officer Miller immediately secured the area and called for backup. Detective Tiana Williams and Officer Mark Vidria, both seasoned investigators, arrived soon after. Detective Williams, known for her meticulous nature, surveyed the chaotic crime scene. The kitchen was a mess. Broken dishes and blood were everywhere. Lisa had been shot and then stabbed multiple times. The number 304 was carved into her stomach, a chilling and mysterious detail. Detective Williams and Officer Vidria began their investigation methodically. They photographed the crime scene from every angle, documenting the blood splatters, broken items, and Lisa's body. They used luminol to detect hidden blood traces and collected fingerprints from surfaces like countertops and doorknobs. DNA samples were taken from various objects, hoping to find something that could identify the killer. The brutality of the attack suggested a crime of passion. Detective Williams considered possible motives. The number carved into Lisa's stomach seemed personal, as if the killer wanted to send a message. They found no signs of forced entry, suggesting Lisa knew her attacker. Rob Turner was taken to the police station for further questioning. Still in shock, he struggled to provide coherent answers. Detective Williams knew they needed to tread carefully with him. They asked about his recent business trip, his relationship with Lisa, and if she had any enemies. Rob mentioned his long work hours and their strained marriage, but denied any involvement in her death. The forensic team continued to gather evidence. They found a partially burnt diary in the fireplace, which contained entries too charred to be legible. This discovery added a new layer to the investigation, revealing something that might possibly be the motive behind the murder. The police also canvassed the neighborhood, interviewing neighbors and searching for witnesses. Some neighbors mentioned hearing loud noises the night before, but didn't think much of it. Others spoke highly of Lisa and her involvement in the community, expressing shock that such a tragedy could occur. Local news stations like WSOC-TD reported the murder, and the community of Pinneville was gripped by fear and curiosity. Detective Williams knew they had to solve this case quickly to bring peace to the neighborhood and justice for Lisa Turner. The first person the police investigated was Rob Turner, Lisa's husband. Rob, 48, was a successful corporate lawyer known for his stern, no-nonsense attitude. He worked long hours with high-profile banks, often helping them to find legal loophole that would allow them to evict people from their homes during the Great Recession. This demanding job had created a distance between him and Lisa. Despite this, Rob was deeply committed to his family and had no known history of violence. After discovering Lisa's body on the morning of March 21, 2012, Rob was in a state of shock. He called 911 immediately and was visibly shaken when the police arrived. Detective Tiana Williams and Officer Mark Vidria knew they needed to question Rob thoroughly. They took him to the police station to get his statement. At the station, Rob sat in a small, sterile interrogation room. He was pale and had dark circles under his eyes from lack of sleep. Detective Williams started with basic questions about his trip to New York City, his relationship with Lisa, and our family life. Rob explained that he had been away on a business trip and returned early to surprise Lisa. He described their marriage as strained, but insisted he would never harm her. Rob's responses were cooperative but filled with grief. He repeatedly stated his love for Lisa and his devastation over her death. He admitted that their relationship had been difficult lately due to his long hours at work, but he denied any involvement in her murder. Rob's lawyer, a sharp attorney, sat beside him, ensuring that Rob's rights were protected throughout the interrogation. The police also looked into Rob's alibi. They verified his flight details and confirmed he had indeed been in New York City for a meeting with a major bank. His colleagues and clients backed up his story, providing a solid alibi for the time of the murder. Despite Rob's cooperation and strong alibi, Detective Williams and her team still had to consider him a suspect. The brutality of the crime suggested a personal motive, and as Lisa's husband, Rob was a primary person of interest. However, without any concrete evidence linking him to the scene, the police had to continue their investigation and look into other potential suspects. The next suspect the police investigated was Jason Brace Collins, the 18-year-old son of Lisa's neighbor. Jason had just graduated from high school and was planning to major in engineering. He was well-liked in the community, known for his charm and good looks. However, a secret affair between him and Lisa had recently come to light, adding a new twist to the investigation. Detective Tiana Williams and Officer Mark Vidria called Jason in for questioning. Jason arrived at the police station looking nervous. He sat in the interrogation room, fidgeting with his hands. The detective started by asking him about his relationship with Lisa. Jason admitted to the affair but claimed it was consensual and that he loved her. He said that Lisa had provided him with attention and excitement he couldn't find elsewhere. When asked about his whereabouts on the night of March 20, Jason said he was at home playing video games. He mentioned specific games like Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 3, which was popular at the time. However, his alibi was weak since he was alone and had no one to confirm his story. Jason's behavior during the interrogation was erratic. At times he was calm, but he also showed bursts of anger and frustration. When detectives pressed him about the affair, he became defensive, insisting he would never hurt Lisa. He talked about their relationship, describing it as passionate but not violent. The police found Jason's nervousness suspicious and decided to search his home. They obtained a warrant and conducted a thorough search of his room. They found several explicit love letters from Lisa and some naked photos of them together, further confirming their relationship. However, they didn't find any physical evidence linking Jason to the murder. Neighbors reported seeing Jason acting strangely in the days following Lisa's death. Some said he seemed agitated and jumpy. Others mentioned he was less friendly and more withdrawn than usual. The police took note of these observations, but needed more concrete evidence to make an arrest. The community was shocked by the revelation of the affair. The once charming boy next door was now under a cloud of suspicion. Detective Williams knew they had to dig deeper into Jason's background and relationship with Lisa to uncover the truth. While Jason's affair with Lisa provided a possible motive, the police still needed more evidence to link him directly to the murder. They continued their investigation, knowing that solving this case required careful scrutiny of every detail. The third suspect the police investigated was Paula Brace Collins, Lisa's best friend and next-door neighbor. Paula, 43, was a stay-at-home mom who shared almost everything with Lisa. She was also passionate about running the choir at their church. Recently, Paula had grown suspicious of Lisa's behavior, fearing it might affect their friendship and her family, though she completely unaware of Lisa's affair with her son, Jason. Detective Tiana Williams and Officer Mark Vidria called Paula in for questioning. Paul arrived at the station looking worried but composed. In the small interrogation room, Detective Williams asked Paula about her relationship with Lisa. Paula spoke fondly of Lisa, describing her as a dear friend and confidant. However, Paula admitted she had noticed Lisa acting strangely in recent months and had been concerned. When asked about her whereabouts on the night of March 20, Paula said she was at home, preparing for the upcoming church event. She mentioned specific tasks like making decorations and organizing a volunteer list, tasks she could verify with other church members. Paula's alibi seemed solid, but the detectives pressed further. Detective Williams asked Paula if she knew about Lisa's affair with Jason. Paula was shocked and visibly upset. She insisted she had no idea about the affair and that she would have never condoned such behavior. Her reaction appeared genuine, and the detectives noted her distress. The police then asked Paula if she had any reason to harm Lisa. Paula vehemently denied any motive, stating that she loved Lisa like a sister and would never hurt her. She became emotional, tears welling up in her eyes, and continued to deny any involvement in Lisa's death. To corroborate Paula's alibi, the detectives interviewed other members of the church choir. They confirmed that Paula had been working on church preparations that night. Additionally, neighbors reported seeing Paula at home, further supporting her account. Despite Paula's solid alibi, the police still had to consider her a suspect due to her close relationship with both Lisa and Jason. They searched Paula's house for any evidence but found nothing linking her to the murder. The community of Pinneville was shaken as local news stations, including WSOC-TV, Charlotte's local news leader, reported on Paula's questioning, casting suspicion on another pillar of the community. Detective Williams and Officer Vidria continued to investigate, knowing that Paula's strong alibi and lack of evidence made it difficult to link her to the crime. They needed to explore every possible angle to uncover the truth behind Lisa Turner's brutal murder. On the morning of March 25, 2012, a break in the case came with a surprising discovery. It was a sunny day in Pinneville, and Detective Tiana Williams received a call from a local resident named Leah Johnson. Leah was walking her dog in a nearby park when she found a small leather-bound journal partially buried under a bush. She quickly reported it to the police, thinking it might be connected to the recent murder. Detective Williams and Officer Mark Vidria rushed to the park to retrieve the journal. They carefully placed it in an evidence bag and took it back to the station for examination. The journal turned out to be a photocopy of Lisa Turner's secret diary, but one that was too burnt to be able to read, containing detailed and graphic entries about her affair with Jason Brace Collins. It also included her thoughts and feelings about her marriage and her sense of loneliness. The diary entries revealed that Lisa had been planning to end the affair with Jason. She felt guilty about betraying her family and wanted to focus on repairing her marriage and her church work. In addition, Lisa noted strange changes in Jason's behavior. She described how he thought he was lighted by the angel's light and how he badgered her to have sex with him 12 times a day. The last entry, dated March 19, mentioned her intention to meet Jason to break off the relationship. This new evidence shifted the focus of the investigation. Detective Williams and her team realized that Jason's obsession with Lisa might have driven him to murder her when she tried to end things. The diary also included several entries describing how Lisa seduced Jason by bathing naked in her backyard, which had a direct line of sight to his bedroom. These entries painted a calculated and disturbing picture of their intense and tumultuous relationship. The police decided to bring Jason in for further questioning. They confronted him with the diary entries, hoping to get a reaction. Jason initially denied everything, but when faced with the detailed descriptions of their affair, he broke down. He admitted to being in love with Lisa and feeling devastated when she wanted to end things. Detective Williams noticed that Jason's behavior was erratic and decided to have him undergo a psychological evaluation. The results indicated that Jason might be suffering from an undiagnosed bipolar disorder, which could explain his extreme reactions and mood swings. This information added a new layer to the investigation, suggesting that Jason's mental state could have played a role in the crime. The community of Pinneville was eager for answers, and the pressure on the police to solve the case increased. Detective Williams and her team continued to piece together the evidence, knowing they were closer to uncovering the truth behind Lisa Turner's tragic death. On March 26, 2012, the police made a breakthrough in the case. After reviewing Lisa Turner's diary and conducting a psychological evaluation of Jason Brace Collins, the evidence pointed clearly to him as the prime suspect. Detective Tiana Williams and Officer Mark Gidria decided it was time to bring Jason in for a formal arrest. Jason Brace Collins, 18, was known for his charm and good looks, but the investigation revealed a darker side. Jason had fallen deeply in love with Lisa, and when she tried to end their affair, he couldn't handle it. His undiagnosed bipolar disorder likely contributed to his extreme reaction. Jason had become possessive and obsessed with Lisa, and the thought of losing her drove him to a fit of rage. The murder occurred on the night of March 20. Jason had gone to the Turner house for sex, knowing Rob was away on a business trip. Lisa let him in, intending to end the relationship. An argument ensued, escalating quickly. Jason, overwhelmed by his emotions, shot Lisa and then stabbed her multiple times. The number 304 carved into her stomach was a final twisted act of control. On the morning of March 26, around 10 a.m., the police arrived at the Brace Collins home to arrest Jason. Detective Williams led the team. They knocked on the door, and Paula Brace Collins answered, shocked to see the police. Jason was inside, and when he saw the officers, he tried to run but was quickly apprehended. Jason's reaction to the arrest was a mix of surprise and resignation. He didn't resist but looked defeated, knowing his actions had caught up with him. He was handcuffed and taken to the police station. During the ride, he remained silent, staring blankly ahead. The news of Jason's arrest spread quickly through Pennville. Local TV stations, including WSOC-TV, reported the developments. The community was in shock, especially those who knew Jason as the charming boy next door. The Turner family, devastated by Lisa's death, expressed relief that the murderer had been caught. They were grateful to the police for their hard work, but still struggled with their loss. At the police station, Jason was booked and charged with first-degree murder. He confessed to the crime during interrogation, detailing how his love for Lisa had turned into an uncontrollable obsession. He admitted that when Lisa tried to break up with him, he snapped and killed her in a fit of rage. Jason's arrest brought some closure to the community, but the pain of losing Lisa Turner lingered. Her family and friends tried to move forward, but the memory of that tragic night remained fresh in their minds. The trial of Jason Brace Collins began on July 15, 2012, at the Mecklenburg County Courthouse. The courtroom was packed with members of the Pineville community, including Lisa Turner's family and friends. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Leah Kastrowitz, a 50-year-old seasoned lawyer known for her tough stance on violent crimes. Leah presented a strong case, detailing how Jason's obsession with Lisa had driven him to commit the murder. Leah Kastrowitz described the brutal nature of the crime, emphasizing the shooting and stabbing, as well as the number 304 carved into Lisa's stomach. She brought in forensic experts to explain the evidence collected at the scene, including DNA and fingerprints linking Jason to the crime. She also presented entries from Lisa's diary, which documented her affair with Jason and her plans to end it. The defense attorney, Richard Blake, was a 45-year-old lawyer known for his calm and methodical approach. He argued that Jason's undiagnosed bipolar disorder played a significant role in his actions. Richard called in medical experts who testified about Jason's mental state, explaining how his condition could have led to a loss of control. He also highlighted Jason's young age and lack of prior criminal records, suggesting that he deserved leniency. Throughout the trial, Lisa Turner's family watched with heavy hearts. Her husband, Rob, and their children, Carmel and Militia, often broke down in tears as they listened to the details of her murder. The community members who attended the trial showed their support for the Turner family, hoping for justice to be served. After weeks of testimonies and deliberations, the jury reached a verdict. On August 12, 2012, Jason Brace Collins was found guilty of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom was silent as the sentence was read, and Jason showed little emotion, accepting his fate with a blank stare. The verdict brought a sense of closure to Lisa's family and friends, but the pain of losing her remained. They believed the punishment was just, given the brutality of the crime and the impact it had on their lives. The community of Pineville felt a mix of relief and sorrow, knowing that justice had been served but that they have lost a cherished member of their community. Local news stations like LUSOC-TV covered the trial extensively, highlighting the emotional journey of the Turner family and the community's response to the verdict. The trial and its outcome were discussed in homes, schools, and churches, as everyone tried to make sense of the tragedy that had shaken their quiet suburb. After the trial of Jason Brace Collins concluded, life in Pineville began to slowly return to normal, though the scars of Lisa Turner's murder still lingered. For the Turner family, the verdict brought a sense of closure, knowing that Jason would spend the rest of his life behind bars for taking Lisa away from them. Rob Turner focused on rebuilding his life and supporting his children, Carmel and Militia, who struggled with the loss of their mother. The community rallied around the Turner family, offering support and comfort in various forms. Neighbors organized meal trains and childcare assistance, easing the burden on Rob as he adjusted to being a single parent. The local church, where Lisa had been an active member, held memorial services in her honor, celebrating her life and the impact she had on others. Meanwhile, Paula Brace Collins faced her own challenges. As Jason's mother and Lisa's best friend, Paula was devastated by the betrayal and the loss of both her son and her closest confidant. She withdrew from church activities and community events, choosing instead to focus on supporting Jason through letters and occasional visits to the prison. Jason, now incarcerated at Central Prison in Raleigh, North Carolina, adjusted to life behind bars. He received counseling and medication for his bipolar disorder, aiming to manage his condition while serving his sentence. Although he expressed remorse for his actions, Jason understood the severity of his crime and the impact it had on Lisa's family and the community. The community of Pineville remained vigilant but began to move forward, cherishing the memories of Lisa Turner while looking ahead to brighter days. The tragic events of March 2012 had left an indelible mark, but through unity and resilience, Pineville continued to be a close-knit suburb where neighbors supported one another through life's challenges. David Hale was a 41-year-old man who lived in Ardmore, Oklahoma, a small town known for its conservative values and tight-knit community. He owned a successful car dealership in town, Hale Auto Sales, which had been in his family for generations. He was a well-respected businessman, known for his honesty and integrity. David was also a deacon at the local Baptist church, where he was deeply involved in community events. On the outside, David seemed like the perfect family man, hardworking, kind, and committed to his wife, Anne, and their daughter, Macy. But beneath this clean-cut image, David carried a heavy secret. For years, he struggled with his sexuality, which was at odds with the traditional values of his town and his church. This inner turmoil led him to live a double life, often traveling to Oklahoma City and Dallas for anonymous sex with other men. While he was devoted to his family in many ways, David felt emotionally distant from them, especially as his marriage to Anne had grown cold and loveless. In the years before his death, he struggled to reconcile his true sexual feelings with the life he felt obligated to lead. One of those sexual relationships was with Hunter Davis, his daughter Macy's 18-year-old boyfriend. Hunter, a high school football star, had grown close to David after Macy introduced him to the family. On the surface, David acted as a mentor to Hunter, offering him guidance, helping him find work at the dealership, and even giving him financial support. But in reality, David was using this mentorship as a way to Hunter into a secret sexual relationship with him. David's double life began to catch up with him in the summer of 2021. His daughter, Macy, had just graduated from high school and was looking forward to starting classes at a local community college. She was excited about her future and was planning to marry Hunter that fall. David, meanwhile, was struggling to keep his affair hidden while managing the growing tension in his home. Macy, always close with her father, started to notice his strange behavior but was clueless to what was really going on. In the days leading up to his death, David seemed distracted, his mind clearly on more than just his business and family obligations. He spent more time than usual in private, often taking long drives late at night or shutting himself away in his home office. His double life was finally unraveling, leading to the fateful confrontation that would cost him his life. On the morning of August 14, 2021, at around 7:00 a.m., David Hale's body was found by his daughter, Macy, in the bathroom of their home. It was a Saturday, and like many small towns, Ardmore, Oklahoma was quiet. Macy had woken up early, planning to go out for breakfast at Denny's with her boyfriend Hunter. She knocked on her father's bathroom door but got no answer. When she opened it, she was met with a horrific sight. David was lying on the cold tile floor, a pool of blood surrounding him. The bathroom mirror was splattered, and the handgun that David kept for protection was lying on the floor next to his lifeless hand. Macy screamed, dropping her phone as she stood frozen in shock. After a few moments, she ran back to her room, grabbed her phone off the floor, and called 911. Macy's voice trembled as she spoke to the dispatcher, struggling to explain what had happened. Her mind raced as she replayed the events of the last few days, trying to make sense of how her father, the man she had looked up to all her life, could now be dead. The dispatcher tried to calm her down, asking her to stay on the line until help arrived. Macy remained panicked, pacing back and forth between the bathroom and the living room, trying to catch her breath. Within minutes, the first responders arrived at the Hale residence, a modest ranch-style house on the outskirts of town. The paramedics quickly confirmed what Macy already knew: her father was dead. As the reality set in, Macy collapsed onto the front porch, tears streaming down her face. Her world had been turned upside down in an instant. News of the tragedy spread quickly throughout Ardmore. In a town where gossip moved fast, especially in the age of Facebook and local news websites, word of David Hale's death shocked the entire community. Neighbors began gathering outside the Hale house, whispering and speculating about what could have happened to the man they knew as a kind and upstanding citizen. Macy was taken to the police station shortly after her father's body was found. Still in shock, she could barely process what was happening. Her mother, Ann, had been out of town visiting her sister in Tulsa and was on her way back, completely unaware of the nightmare awaiting her. By mid-morning, the small, quiet town of Ardmore was buzzing with confusion, fear, and rumors about what had led to the death of David Hale. The Ardmore Police Department arrived on the scene around 7:30 a.m. on August 14, 2021, less than 30 minutes after Macy Hale made the frantic 911 call. Lead investigator Detective Greg Marshall, a seasoned officer with over 15 years on the force, was known for his methodical approach to crime scenes. The bathroom where David Hale's body was found was small but recently renovated, with white walls and white tile flooring. It was a mess. Blood had pooled around David's head, and splatters covered the sink, mirror, and walls. The handgun, a Smith & Wesson .38, lay on the floor near David's right hand. It was clear that David had been shot at close range. The bullet had entered his chest, leaving no chance for survival. The detectives took in the details. The rest of the house was undisturbed. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken windows, and nothing appeared to be stolen. It seemed unlikely that this was a robbery gone wrong, especially in a town like Ardmore, where violent crime was rare. Detective Marshall knelt next to the body, noting the position of the gun and David's hand. There was no indication of a struggle in the bathroom, but something about the scene felt off to him. He had another officer to dust for fingerprints on the gun and check for any other trace evidence in the room. He also requested a thorough examination of David's phone, which was sitting on the counter next to the sink. Marshall knew that in today's world, people's phones often held secrets, and he suspected David's would be no different. As the investigation continued, the police used luminol, a chemical agent, to check for any blood traces that might have been cleaned up elsewhere in the house. The only blood present was in the bathrooms, suggesting that David had been killed there and not moved after his death. Crime scene photographers documented every angle, making sure nothing was missed. By noon, the detectives had gathered all the evidence they could from the scene. The body was taken to the local coroner for a full autopsy, which would later confirm that David had died from a single gunshot wound to the chest. As Marshall wrapped up their initial investigation, it was clear they were dealing with more than just a simple accident or home invasion. Something much more personal had happened here. Macy Hale, David's 18-year-old daughter, was the first person the police questioned. Still in shock after finding her father's body, she was taken to the Ardmore Police Department later that morning. Detective Greg Marshall knew this would be a delicate interrogation. Macy was emotional, her face pale, and her hands trembling as she sat in the small, windowless interview room. Macy was fresh out of high school with plans to start community college in the fall. She was known around town for her outgoing personality and dedication to soccer, often seen at the local field in her Adidas gear. Her relationship with her father had always seemed strong, though in recent weeks, according to friends, Macy had been quieter and more withdrawn. Detective Marshall wanted to understand why. He started the interview gently, asking Macy about her relationship with her father. Macy described her dad as a hardworking man, always at the car dealership, but still making time for Sunday dinners and church. Her voice wavered as she recalled how their relationship had recently changed. Just days before the murder, Macy had discovered something shocking that shattered her world. She had found sexually explicit messages on her boyfriend Hunter's phone, revealing an affair between Hunter and her father. Macy's discovery had left her devastated, and the detectives could see the raw emotion on her face as she talked. She felt betrayed by both men and didn't know how to handle the situation. "I just wanted things to go back to normal," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I didn't want to believe what I saw." Marshall listened carefully. The motive for Macy to be involved in her father's death was clear: anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. However, as the interrogation continued, Macy insisted that despite her rage, she would never hurt her father. Her alibi was solid, too. On the night of the murder, she had spent most of the evening with Hunter, who she still loved despite his affair with her father, and several friends had seen them together at a local ice cream shop, Brahms, a popular spot in Ardmore. Surveillance footage from the store confirmed her presence there, giving her an airtight alibi for the time of the crime. Though Macy's emotional state and recent discovery pointed to her as a potential suspect, the detectives ultimately found no physical evidence linking her to the murder. Marshall, however, couldn't shake the feeling that this family's secrets ran much deeper than they appeared. Next on the police's list of suspects was Anne Hale, David's 39-year-old wife. Anne had been married to David for 20 years and was well known in Ardmore for her deep involvement in the church and the local community. As a stay-at-home mom, she spent much of her time organizing church events, leading Bible study groups, and volunteering at the local food pantry. Outwardly, Anne appeared to have the perfect life: a loving husband, a bright daughter, and a strong reputation in their conservative town. However, as the detectives dug deeper, they uncovered cracks in her seemingly perfect marriage. Friends and neighbors described the relationship between Anne and David as strained. Over the past few years, the two had grown distant, with David spending more time at his car dealership and Anne pouring herself into church activities. It was no secret that their loveless marriage lacked the intimacy it once had. Detective Greg Marshall brought Anne in for questioning 2 days after the murder. When she walked into the police station, she looked tired and grief-stricken, her eyes red from crying. Dressed in a simple floral dress, Anne clutched a tissue in her hand as she sat down across from the investigators. At first, Anne seemed cooperative, answering questions about her husband's routine in their marriage. She admitted that things hadn't been the same between them for a long time. "We were more like roommates than husband and wife," she said, her voice breaking. "I can't remember the last time he touched me." But when the detectives brought up the affair between David and Hunter, Anne's demeanor changed. She seemed shocked at the news, almost as if she couldn't believe it. As the interrogation continued, the detectives pressed her about her whereabouts the night of the murder. Anne claimed she had been out of town visiting her sister in Tulsa. It was on her way back, completely unaware of the nightmare awaiting her. Her story seemed plausible, but the police couldn't ignore the fact that Anne had a clear motive. The betrayal of both her husband and her daughter's boyfriend would be enough to push anyone over the edge. Anne's emotions were a mix of grief and anger during the interrogation. She maintained her innocence, but didn't deny that the revelation of the affair had deeply affected her. Still, like her daughter, Anne had no physical evidence linking her to the murder, and the detectives knew they needed more to definitively rule her out or confirm her involvement. On the morning of August 23, 2021, just 2 days after David Hale's murder, Ardmore detectives received a crucial break in the case. It was a humid, overcast day with temperatures in the low 90s, and the conservative town was still buzzing with spicy gossip about the crime. At around 10 a.m., Detective Greg Marshall got a call from the forensics lab. The teen had found a key piece of evidence that had been overlooked during the initial search of the Hale home. The gun used to kill David had traces of fingerprints on it, but they didn't belong to Anne or Macy. The detectives quickly returned to the Hale residence to re-examine the crime scene. The house had already been searched extensively, but this new development prompted another, more thorough inspection as they started retracing their steps through the house. The bathroom where David was found was still cordoned off, with unclean bloodstains still marking the spot where his body had been discovered. The gun, a Smith & Wesson revolver, had been carefully bagged as evidence, but now the forensic report gave them a new direction. The fingerprints on the gun matched Hunter Davis, Macy's boyfriend, who had been close to the family in many different ways for the past 2 years. This revelation raised immediate questions. Why were Hunter's prints on the gun? And what was his role in the murder? Detective Marshall recalled that during his brief initial interview, Hunter had seemed nervous but not overly suspicious. He had mentioned being with Macy at Braun's ice cream shop that evening, where several friends had confirmed his alibi. However, the prints on the gun painted a different picture, one that placed Hunter at the crime scene. The detectives knew they had to proceed carefully. They contacted Hunter and asked him to come in for a follow-up interview. Meanwhile, they began piecing together his connection to the Hale family. David had taken Hunter under his wing, offering him a job at the dealership and financial support in exchange for illicit sex. But the discovery of the affair had turned everything upside down. The new evidence gave the detectives more questions than answers, but it was clear that Hunter's involvement was deeper than they had initially thought. As the investigation progressed, the team felt they were getting closer to uncovering the truth. For the first time since the murder, they had a tangible lead that could break the case wide open. Hunter Davis, Macy Hale's 18-year-old boyfriend, quickly became the focus of the investigation after the discovery of his fingerprints on the gun that killed David Hale. Hunter, a well-known football star at Ardmore High School, had charmed most of the town with his athletic abilities and friendly demeanor. But behind that image was a troubled young man who had grown up in a difficult home environment. His mother struggled with drug addiction, and his father had long battled alcoholism. David Hale had stepped in as a parental figure, offering Hunter a summer job at his car dealership and even giving him a place to stay when things got rough at home. When Hunter arrived at the Ardmore Police Department for his second interview, the tension in the room was palpable. Detective Greg Marshall was ready to confront him with the new evidence. Hunter looked uneasy as he sat down, his hands fidgeting on the table. Wearing a faded Sooners t-shirt and jeans, he no longer carried the confident swagger he was known for on the football field. The detectives began by asking Hunter to walk them through the night of the murder again. He repeated his story. He had been with Macy at Brahms, grabbing burgers and shakes. But when confronted with the fingerprint evidence, his face went pale. He stammered, trying to explain how his prints could have ended up on the gun, and swore he didn't kill him. The detectives pressed him further, asking about his sexual relationship with David. Hunter hesitated before admitting that David had been more than just a mentor. He was his lover. Their relationship had turned into something so intense and passionate Hunter didn't know how to handle. He felt trapped, loyal to Macy, but manipulated by David, who had both helped him financially and used him for sex. "I didn't want any of this," Hunter said, his voice cracking. As the interrogation continued, Hunter's emotional state shifted from defensive to desperate. He denied any involvement in David's death, but seemed genuinely conflicted. He insisted that he loved Macy and wanted nothing to do with David anymore, but the detectives weren't convinced. His prints on the gun and his history with David were enough to keep him under suspicion. Though Hunter's responses were emotional and at times erratic, the detectives knew they needed more concrete evidence before they could determine his true role in David's murder. For now, Hunter remained one of the prime suspects, his relationship with the victim casting a long shadow over the investigation. On August 27, 2021, just before dawn, the Ardmore Police Department at last pieced together the tragic truth. After weeks of investigation and numerous interviews, they finally identified the murderer, Macy Hale, David's 18-year-old daughter. Macy had been the last person anyone expected to commit such a crime. To the outside world, she was a bright, driven young woman with a passion for soccer and plans for college. But beneath her calm exterior, she had been harboring an overwhelming storm of anger and betrayal. The investigation turned in Macy's direction when her mother, Ann Hale, provided police with a shocking detail. Macy had discovered sexually explicit messages between her father and her boyfriend, Hunter Davis, just days before the murder. This revelation gave Macy both the motive and the means to kill her father. The police immediately re-examined Macy's alibi. She had claimed she was at Brahms, a local fast food chain, with Hunter at the time of the murder. But surveillance footage from that night told a different story. The timestamp didn't match up with the timeline Macy had given during her initial interview. That, combined with forensic evidence linking her to the scene, sealed her fate. The night of August 27, police arrived at the Hale family home, where Macy was staying with her mother. The quiet Ardmore neighborhood, known for its conservative values, was suddenly buzzing with the sight of flashing lights and officers surrounding the house. Detective Greg Marshall, who had been leading the investigation, knocked on the door. Anne answered, visibly shaken, but Macy stood behind her, her face expressionless. "Macy Hale, you are under arrest for the murder of David Hale," Marshall said calmly as he read her rights. Macy showed no visible shock. Instead, she remained eerily calm, as if she had already accepted her fate. She complied with the arrest without resistance. As Macy was handcuffed and led to the police cruiser, Anne Hale collapsed onto the front porch, sobbing uncontrollably so much she even peed herself. The reality that her own daughter had killed her husband was too much to bear. Neighbors peeked out from behind their curtains, whispering in disbelief at what had happened in their small, close-knit community. For the Hale family, life would never be the same again. The arrest brought some answers, but it left a trail of devastation in its wake. Macy Hale's trial began on August 31, 2022, in Ardmore, Oklahoma. The courtroom was packed with community members, reporters from local outlets like the Ardmore Daily, and members of the Hale family. The trial was a focal point of local news, given the shockwaves the murder had sent through this small, tight-knit town. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Michael Granger, argued that Macy Hale had acted out of anger and betrayal. Granger, known for his meticulous approach, presented evidence showing that Macy had discovered inappropriate messages between her father, David Hale, and her boyfriend, Hunter Davis. The prosecution claimed that this discovery had pushed Macy to murder her father in a fit of rage. The key evidence included the murder weapon, David's handgun, and Macy's fingerprints on it. Granger painted a picture of a young woman overwhelmed by jealousy and heartbreak, unable to control her emotions. Macy's defense attorney, Lula Ray McDonald, a 72-year-old veteran lawyer with a reputation for defending difficult cases, argued that Macy had acted in a moment of extreme emotional distress. McDonald pointed out that Macy had no prior criminal record and had been a loving daughter before discovering the affair. She claimed that Macy's actions were the result of a severe emotional breakdown rather than premeditated murder. McDonald asked the jury to consider Macy's age and mental state when making their decision. Throughout the trial, Macy's mother, Anne Hale, sat in the courtroom, her face a mask of grief and confusion. The emotional strain was visible on her face, and she often wiped tears from her eyes. Her reaction was one of devastation, reflecting the loss of both her husband and the relationship with her daughter. Macy herself appeared somber, rarely making eye contact with the audience or her mother. On September 10, 2022, the jury returned a verdict of guilty of second-degree murder. The verdict was met with mixed reactions from the community. Some felt justice had been served, while others were saddened by the tragic outcome. The judge sentenced Macy to 25 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years. For the Hale family, the trial marked the end of a harrowing chapter. Macy's conviction brought a sense of closure, but it also left deep wounds in the family and the community. The tragic events had forever changed the lives of everyone involved. After Macy Hale's trial, the impact on those involved was profound. Ardmore, Oklahoma, a town known for its close-knit community and traditional values, had been shaken by the murder and the subsequent legal proceedings. Macy Hale, now serving a 25-year sentence at the Mabel Bassett Correctional Center in McLeod, Oklahoma, faced a life drastically different from the one she had planned. Her time in prison was marked by isolation and regret. The once bright future she had envisioned, including her plans for college and a career, had been replaced by a harsh reality. Macy's story was widely covered in local media, including the Ardmore Daily and news stations like KXI-TV. The media coverage, while providing updates on her case, also served as a constant reminder of the tragic events and the lives changed forever. Anne Hale, David's widow, struggled to find normalcy in her life. She had to deal with the loss of her husband and the betrayal of her daughter. Anne, known for her involvement in local church activities and charity events, found solace in her faith. She continued to lead Bible study groups at the church, but did so with a heavy heart. The community rallied around her, offering support and condolences. Despite the support, Anne found it difficult to move past the betrayal and the fractured family relationships. Hunter Davis, Macy's former boyfriend, also faced significant challenges. After the murder, Hunter left Ardmore and went to live with relatives in a different state. His reputation as a high school football star was tarnished by his involvement in the scandal. Hunter attempted to rebuild his life away from the media spotlight, focusing on finding a job and starting over. However, the emotional scars from the affair and the murder remained with him, affecting his relationships and self-esteem. In summary, the lives of Macy Hale, Anne Hale, and Hunter Davis were forever altered by the murder. The community of Ardmore continued to deal with the emotional aftermath, trying to find healing in the wake of such a profound tragedy. The first victim was Dana Carlisle, an 84-year-old woman who had a remarkable life story. Born in Flint, Michigan, in 1920, Dana grew up in a working-class family during the Great Depression. She had a natural talent for nursing and enrolled in the Army Nurse Corps at the age of 18. She was deployed to Europe during World War II, where she witnessed the horrors of war firsthand. She was one of the few nurses who survived the Battle of the Bulge, the deadliest battle in American history. She received several medals for her bravery and service. After the war, Dana continued her nursing career and worked in various hospitals and clinics across the country. She married her high school sweetheart, Frank Carlisle, and had 2 children, Mark and Lisa. She was a devoted mother and grandmother and always had a smile on her face. She loved to read, knit, and watch her favorite show, The Golden Girls. She was also an avid fan of the Detroit Tigers and never missed a game. Dana moved to the Raleigh Meadows nursing home in 2003 after her husband passed away from a heart attack. She wanted to be closer to her daughter, Lisa, who lived in Tampa. She quickly made friends with the other residents and the staff, who admired her cheerful attitude and her compassion for others. She was a leader and a mentor, and often organized activities and events for the nursing home. She had a dream of creating a safe and loving community for the elderly where they could enjoy their golden years with respect and dignity. But Dana's dream would be shattered one July day. Another elderly victim who had trusted their life to the staff of the Raleigh Meadows nursing home, located in a quiet suburb of Pinellas Park. Someone had a sinister plan to end their lives, and the motive would be shocking. It was a scorching day in July of 2004 when a gruesome discovery was made at the Raleigh Meadows nursing home in Pinellas Park, Florida. The nursing home was a peaceful and comfortable place for the elderly, surrounded by palm trees and flowers. But on that day, a dark shadow fell over the facility as one of its residents was found murdered in her room. The victim was Dana Carlisle, an 84-year-old woman who had lived a remarkable life. She was a war hero, a nurse, a mother, and a friend to many. She had moved to the nursing home a year ago after losing her husband of 60 years. She had adjusted well to her new home and was loved by the staff and the other residents. She was always cheerful, kind, and helpful, and had a zest for life that was contagious. But someone had snuffed out that life in a brutal and senseless way. There were no signs of forced entry, robbery, or sexual assault. It seemed like a random and motiveless crime that left everyone baffled and terrified. The person who found Dana's body was Robert J. Murkowski, a 91-year-old man who was also a resident of the nursing home. Robert and Dana had become close friends after meeting at a bingo night. They shared a lot of interests and hobbies such as reading, gardening, and watching reruns of Matlock and Happy Days. They often had dinner together and chatted for hours. But his was shattered when he went to visit Dana in her room that morning. He knocked on her door, but there was no answer. He opened the door and saw her lying on her bed, motionless. He thought she was sleeping and gently called her name. But when he got closer, he realized she was not breathing. He touched her face and felt how cold she was. He screamed and ran to get help. The staff arrived soon after and confirmed that Dana was dead. Robert was in shock and could not stop crying. He told the staff everything he knew about Dana and how much he cared for her. He had no idea who would want to hurt her or why. He was heartbroken and felt guilty for not being able to protect her. But Robert was not the only one who was grieving. The entire nursing home was in mourning and in fear. Dana was the first victim, but not the last. More residents would be killed in the next 2 weeks. The killer was still at large and had a twisted agenda. Who was behind these murders, and what was their motive? The answer would shock everyone and expose a web of lies, greed, and revenge. Within minutes of the discovery of Dana Carlisle's body, the police were on the scene at the Raleigh Meadows nursing home in Pinellas Park, Florida. The nursing home was a modern and spacious facility with a capacity of 120 residents. It had a reputation of providing quality care and comfort for the elderly, but on that day, it became the site of a horrific crime that would shock the community. The lead investigators of the case were Detective Jackson and Detective Rokeby, two seasoned and respected detectives from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. They had worked together for over a decade and had solved many high-profile cases, such as the infamous Clearwater serial killer, who had terrorized the city in 2002. They were known for their professionalism, dedication, and intuition. They arrived at the nursing home and were greeted by the staff and the residents, who were visibly shaken and distraught. They were escorted to Dana's room, where they found her lying on her bed, covered with a white sheet. They lifted the sheet and saw her pale and lifeless face. She looked peaceful, as if she had died in her sleep. But the detectives knew better. They noticed a small puncture mark on her arm and a syringe on the floor. They also found a bottle of pain pills on her nightstand with a prescription label that read, "Dana Carlisle, OxyContin, 10 milligrams. Take one every 4 hours as needed for pain." The detectives quickly realized that Dana had been killed by an overdose of pain pills, a method that was unusual and suspicious. They wondered who had access to her medication and why they would want to harm her. They also wondered if there were any other victims, or if Dana was targeted for a specific reason. They had a lot of questions and few answers. They decided to interview the staff and the residents, and to review the security footage and the records of the nursing home. They hoped to find some clues and to catch the killer before they struck again. But they were too late. Dana was the first victim, but not the last. The killer was still on the loose and had a sinister plan. The investigation of the murder of Dana Carlisle, an 84-year-old resident of the Raleigh Meadows nursing home in Pinellas Park, Florida, took a shocking turn when the police identified the first suspect. He was Robert J. Murkowski, a 91-year-old man who was also a resident of the nursing home. He was not only Dana's friend, but also her secret lover. Their affair had started in 2001 when they were both married to other people. They had kept their relationship hidden from their spouses, their families, and their friends. Robert's wife, Helen, had died in 2002 after a long battle with Alzheimer's disease. She had been living in a different nursing home, where Robert had visited her every week. He had felt guilty for cheating on her, but he could not resist his feelings for Dana. He had hoped to start a new life with her after Helen's death. But Dana's husband, Frank, had outlived Helen by a year. He had suffered a heart attack in 2003 and had passed away in his sleep. He had been a loving and faithful husband to Dana, and a proud father and grandfather to their children and grandchildren. He had been unaware of Dana's affair and had trusted her completely. Dana had moved to the Raleigh Meadows nursing home in 2003 after Frank's death. She had wanted to be closer to her daughter, Lisa, who lived in Tampa. She had also wanted to be with Robert, who had moved there a few months earlier. They had finally been free to be together, without any secrets or lies. They had been happy and had enjoyed their time at the nursing home. They had also been sexually intimate many times and had expressed their love for each other. But their happiness was short-lived. On July 15, 2004, Dana was found dead in her room, killed by an overdose of pain pills. The police arrived at the scene and questioned Robert as a witness. He had been the one who had discovered her body and had called for help. He had claimed that he had gone to see her that morning, as he usually did, and had found her unresponsive. He had said that he had been shocked and saddened by her death, and that he had no idea who would want to harm her. But the police were not convinced by his story. They had noticed some inconsistencies and contradictions in his statements. They had also found some evidence that linked him to the crime. They had found his fingerprints on the syringe and the bottle of pain pills that had been used to kill Dana. They had also found a note in his room that read, "I'm sorry, Dana. I love you, but I can't live without you. Forgive me." They accused him of killing Dana out of jealousy or desperation. They speculated that he had feared that she would leave him, or that he had wanted to end their suffering. They interrogated him for hours, trying to get confession or a motive. But Robert remained calm and composed, and denied any involvement in the murder. He said that he loved Dana and that he would never hurt her. He said that the note was a suicide note that he had written a long time ago but had never acted on. He said that the fingerprints were a coincidence and that he had no access to the pain pills. He said that he was innocent and that someone else had killed Dana. But who and why? The police had no other suspects or leads. Was Robert really the killer, or was he a scapegoat? Was this a crime of passion or a cover-up? Was there more to this case than met the eye? The answer would shock everyone and reveal a dark and twisted plot that involved corruption, conspiracy, and revenge. The murder of Dana Carlisle, an 84-year-old resident of the Raleigh Meadows nursing home in Pinellas Park, Florida, was a shocking and tragic event. But it was only the beginning of a nightmare that would haunt the nursing home for weeks. The killer was not done yet and had a list of targets. The next victim was Robert J. Murkowski, a 91-year-old man who was also a resident of the nursing home. He was not only Dana's friend, but also her secret lover. Robert was under suspicion for Dana's murder, but he maintained his innocence. He said that he loved Dana and that he would never hurt her. He said that someone else had killed her and framed him. He said that he had no motive, no access, and no evidence. He said that he was a scapegoat and that the real killer was still on the loose. But the police did not believe him. They thought that he had killed Dana out of jealousy or desperation. They thought that he had feared that she would leave him, or that he had wanted to end their suffering. To them, he was the killer, and they had caught him. But they were wrong. Robert was not the killer, but the next victim. He was found dead in his bed, also overdosed on pain pills, just 2 days after his arrest. His death confirmed the suspicions of the detectives. It was clear that these deaths were not suicides, but cold-blooded murders. The investigation took a sinister turn as the police realized that they were dealing with a serial killer within the nursing home. A serial killer who had a list of targets and a twisted agenda. A serial killer who was not done yet and who had identity that would shock everyone. The breakthrough in the investigation of the murders of Dana Carlisle and Robert J. Murkowski, 2 residents of the Raleigh Meadows nursing home in Pinellas Park, Florida, came on a stormy night when the police searched the nursing home for clues. They stumbled upon a hidden stash of secret recordings that revealed a dark and disturbing truth. The recordings were made by Carly Burgley, a 38-year-old single mother of 3 who worked as an aide at the nursing home. She had a secret hobby that involved recording the intimate and sexual moments of the residents without their consent or knowledge. She had installed hidden cameras and microphones in their rooms and had captured their most private and personal moments, including sex. She had then sold these recordings online, mainly to Japan, where there was a high demand for sexual material involving the elderly. She had made an estimated $15,000 from this illegal and immoral activity and had no remorse or guilt. But her scheme had backfired when she had recorded Dana and Robert. She had not known that they were lovers and had been surprised by their affair. She had also been afraid that they had discovered her secret and had threatened to expose her. She had panicked and had decided to kill them before they could ruin her. She had used her access to their medication and had injected them with a lethal dose of pain pills. She had then planted the evidence to make it look like Robert had killed Dana, and then himself. She had thought that she had gotten away with it and had continued her explicit recordings. But she had not counted on the police, who had found her stash and had traced it back to her. They had exposed her as the killer and as the mastermind behind a sick and twisted business. In the midst of the investigation into the chilling series of murders at the Raleigh Meadows nursing home, a breakthrough occurred. The focus shifted to Carly Burgley, a 38-year-old single mother of 3 and an aide at the nursing home. As the police interrogated her, a complex and troubled past began to unravel. Carly's story was one of desperation and a relentless desire to provide for her family. It was revealed that she had a history of drug addiction, a battle she fought fiercely while trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy. However, Her involvement in the production and distribution of sexually explicit recordings added a sinister layer to her already troubled life. During the interrogation, Carly's emotions were palpable. Anger, fear, and regret danced across her face as she struggled to maintain composure. The weight of her actions bore down on her, and she knew that the consequences would be severe. The detectives pressed her for answers, seeking to unravel the truth hidden beneath her troubled exterior. The investigation took a dark turn as the police delved further into Carly's life. They discovered a web of connections, linking her to a network of individuals involved in the production and distribution of secret sexually explicit materials, specifically of the elderly. It was a world shrouded in secrecy, operating under the radar of law enforcement. As the media caught wind of the case, news blared with sensationalism. The local newspaper, the Pinellas Park Gazette, dedicated coverage to the shocking revelations, captivating the community. As the investigation continued, the detectives meticulously pieced together the puzzle, uncovering the truth behind the series of murders. The case would go down in history as one of the most shocking and disturbing crimes to rock Pinellas Park. After months of investigation, the police finally cracked the case of the nursing home murders. The killer was none other than Carly Burgley, a 38-year-old aide who worked at the Raleigh Meadows nursing home. She was arrested on July 29, 2004, and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Carly Burgley had a dark secret that she was desperate to hide. She was involved in a lucrative but illegal business of making and selling sexually explicit recordings of the elderly residents to Japan. She used hidden cameras and microphones to capture the intimate moments of the unsuspecting victims. The first of her targets was Dana Carlisle, an 84-year-old former nurse who served in World War II. Dana was a beloved figure at the nursing home, known for her kindness and compassion. She had a secret romance with Robert J. Murkowski, a 91-year-old widower. Carly Burgley saw them as an opportunity to make more money and recorded their sexual encounters. However, Carly's scheme was almost discovered by Dana. Carly panicked and decided to silence Dana by overdosing her on pain pills. She staged the scene to look like a suicide and hoped to escape suspicion. But Robert, who found Dana's body, was heartbroken and suspicious. He told the police that Dana would never kill herself and that he suspected foul play. Carly realized that Robert was a loose end and decided to eliminate him as well. She used the same method of overdosing him on pain pills and made it look like another suicide. But the police were not convinced. They noticed the similarities between the 2 deaths and launched a thorough investigation. They found traces of Carly's fingerprints and DNA on the pill bottles and the victims' bodies. They also discovered her hidden stash of recordings and traced her connection to a Japanese website, karaishasexy.jp. The police arrested Carly Burgley and had charged her with 2 counts of first-degree murder and several counts of invasion of privacy, extortion, and fraud. They had also seized her recordings and had contacted the authorities in Japan to track down the buyers. She claimed that she was driven by financial desperation and that she loved her family. She said that she regretted her actions and asked for forgiveness. But the police and the victims' families were not moved by her words. They said that she was a cold-blooded killer who preyed on the vulnerable and betrayed their trust. The courtroom drama unfolded as the trial of Carly Burgley, the accused murderer of the Raleigh Meadows nursing home killings, reached its climax. The prosecution, led by the relentless prosecutor Janet Carolborg, presented a compelling case against Burgley. With attention to detail, Carolborg painted a vivid picture of the events that unfolded in the sweltering summer of July 2004. The trial, held in the Pinellas Park Courthouse, drew significant local media attention. Journalists from local newspapers, such as the Pinellas Tribune, were eager to report on the sensational case. The families of the victims, Dana Carlisle and Robert J. Murkowski, sat anxiously in the gallery, hoping for justice to be served. The prosecution's case relied heavily on forensic evidence and eyewitness testimonies. Expert witnesses, including renowned medical examiner Dr. Samantha Collins, testified about the cause of death and the presence of pain pills in the victims' bodies. The prosecution also presented phone records and surveillance footage from the nursing home, which placed Burgley at the scene of the crimes. Defense attorney Janelle Lavrov, known for his fierce advocacy, fought tirelessly to protect his client's rights. Lavrov argued that the evidence against Burgley was circumstantial and lacked a direct link to the murders. He questioned the credibility of the witnesses and raised doubts about the motives attributed to Burgley. Finally, after careful deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. The judge, Honorable Paul Thompson, announced that Carly Burgley was found guilty on multiple counts of murder. Gasps filled the courtroom as the families of the victims embraced each other, finding solace in the knowledge that justice had been served. As Burgley was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, the media frenzy intensified. News outlets across Tampa Bay reported on the trial, dissecting the evidence and analyzing the motives behind the killings. The case became a cautionary tale, highlighting the need for increased security measures in nursing homes and the potential dangers of hidden secrets. In the aftermath of the trial, the lives of all those involved were forever changed. The shocking series of murders that took place at the Raleigh Meadows nursing home in Pinellas Park, Florida, in July of 2004 left a lasting impact on the community and beyond. Journalists from across the Tampa area flocked to Pinellas Park, eager to report on the sensational details of the trial. The local newspaper, the Pinellas Park Gazette, dedicated coverage to the trial with headlines like "Justice Served," "Burgley Convicted of Murder," and "The Burgley Trial. A Community's Healing Begins." The impact of these horrific crimes extended beyond the courtroom. The Raleigh Meadows nursing home, once a place of care and comfort, became infamous in the community. The residents and their families were left questioning the safety and security of nursing homes across the country. The tragedy prompted a conversation about the need for stricter regulations and oversight in elder care facilities. In response to the murders, the Raleigh Meadows nursing home implemented a series of security measures to prevent future tragedies. The facility installed state-of-the-art surveillance cameras, increased staff training on recognizing signs of abuse or neglect, and implemented stricter visitor policies. These changes aim to restore trust within the community and ensure the safety and well-being of the residents. As the years passed, the wounds inflicted by these heinous crimes slowly began to heal. The victims' families found solace in knowing that justice had been served, while the community rallied together to support one another through the difficult process of healing. The memory of the Raleigh Meadows nursing home murders remains a somber reminder of the need for vigilance and compassion in caring for our elderly population. In this episode of True Crime Case Files, we delved into the chilling series of murders that struck the Raleigh Meadows nursing home. The lives of Dana Carlisle and Robert J. Murkowski were tragically cut short by Carly Burgley, a single mother driven by desperation and a dark secret. As we reflect on this harrowing tale, let us remember the victims and the resilience of those who survived. Stay tuned for more gripping true crime stories on True Crime Case Files. Myra Everson was a 25-year-old woman full of life and love. She lived in Bentonville, Arkansas, a small town known for being the home of Walmart, America's #1 retailer. Myra was very creative and loved helping people. She worked at a homeless shelter called Helping Hands and was very passionate about her job. Myra often organized events to raise money and collect donations for the shelter. She was well known in the community for her kindness and dedication. Myra was also very involved in the local art community. She loved painting and often participated in art shows and exhibitions. Her favorite place to visit was the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art. She would spend hours there, admiring the works of famous artists and getting inspiration for her own creations. Myra grew up in Bentonville and went to Bentonville High School, where she was an excellent student. She was especially good at English and art. Her parents were Reverend Azazel Everson and Clara Everson. Clara passed away when Myra was only 10 years old, leaving her to be raised by her strict and controlling father. Despite her father's harsh ways, Myra remained optimistic and cheerful. She had a younger sister, Lyra, who she was very close to. Lyra often described Myra as her best friend and biggest supporter. Myra had a close-knit group of friends, including Lily Harrington, who also worked at the homeless shelter. Myra had big dreams for the future. She wanted to open her own art studio where people could come and create art together. She often talked about her plans with excitement, sharing her vision of a space filled with colorful paintings and happy people. In the days before her death, Myra was busy preparing for an art exhibition that was scheduled for the end of October 1992. She was very excited about it and spent a lot of time working on her paintings. Myra's vibrant personality and warm heart made her a beloved member of the Bentonville community. She had a way of making everyone around her feel special and loved. Her sudden and tragic death left a huge void in the lives of those who knew and loved her. On the morning of October 14, 1992, Bentonville, Arkansas, was experiencing a chilly and overcast day. At around 8 o'clock a.m., Myra's friend and co-worker, Grisly Harrington, went to Myra's house. They had planned to carpool to work at the Helping Hands homeless shelter, just like they did every day. When Grisly arrived, she noticed that the front door was slightly open. Thinking Myra might have stepped out for a moment, she called out her name but received no response. Grisly hesitated for a moment, feeling a growing sense of unease. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. The living room was eerily quiet, and there was a chill in the air. As she walked further into the house, she saw Myra lying on the living room floor. Grisly froze in horror, unable to believe what she was seeing. Myra's face was pale, and her left hand was terribly mangled, with 3 fingers missing. Grisly's heart raced as she rushed to check for signs of life, but it was clear that Myra was gone. Overwhelmed by shock and fear, Grisly stumbled back and grabbed the kitchen phone to dial 911. Her voice was shaky and full of panic as she described the scene to the dispatcher. She could hardly believe that her friend was dead. The news of Myra's death spread quickly through Bentonville. By the time the police arrived, a small crowd had begun to gather outside her house. The brutal nature of Myra's murder left them with many questions. Why would someone do this to such a beloved member of the community? As the investigation began, the people of Bentonville were left in shock and fear, wondering who could have committed such a terrible crime. The police arrived quickly at Mayor Everson's house on the morning of October 14, 1992. The weather was chilly and overcast, matching the grim mood. Detective Samuel E. Mera, a seasoned investigator known for his thoroughness, led the team. Detective Karen Genora, his sharp and observant partner, was by his side. When the detectives entered the living room, they were met with a disturbing scene. The room was in disarray, with furniture knocked over and items scattered. A blood-stained belt lay on the floor, clearly the murder weapon used to strangle Myra. The sight was shocking even to the experienced detectives. Myra's body showed signs of a violent struggle, and her left hand was horribly mutilated, with 3 fingers ripped off. Detective Emera and Genora carefully examined the crime scene. They documented everything, taking numerous photographs and making detailed notes. They collected the belt and other potential evidence, such as fingerprints and fibers. The detectives also noticed a broken lamp and several books scattered around, suggesting Myra fought hard against her attacker. Forensics teams arrived shortly after to assist with the investigation. They used various tools and methods to gather evidence. They dusted for fingerprints, collected hair and fiber samples, and searched for any other clues that might help identify the murderer. The brutality of the crime indicated a deep personal motive, and the detectives knew they had to work quickly to solve the case. Neighbors and bystanders watched in silence as the police worked. Bentonville was a close-knit community, and the news of Myra's murder had already begun to spread. People were shocked and scared, unable to comprehend why someone would kill such a beloved young woman. Detective Emera interviewed Grisly Harrington, who had found Myra's body. Grisly was still in shock but managed to provide a detailed account of her discovery. She described how she found the front door ajar and the horrible sight of Myra's lifeless body on the living room floor. Her testimony gave the detectives a clearer picture of the timeline. The investigation team also spoke to neighbors, asking if anyone had seen or heard anything unusual that morning. Some reported hearing raised voices late at night, while others mentioned seeing a strange car parked nearby. The detectives took note of every detail, knowing that even the smallest clue could be crucial. As the day went on, the police continued their investigation, determined to find justice for Myra. The crime scene was methodically combed for evidence, and the detectives began to piece together the tragic events leading to her death. The investigation into Myra Everson's murder quickly turned to her father, Reverend Azazel Everson. Azazel was a well-known figure in Bentonville, Arkansas, respected for his role as a preacher. At 56 years old, he was charming and sociable, often seen as a pillar of the community. However, beneath his outward charm, Azazel had a dark and controlling side that few knew about. Detective Samuel Emera and Detective Karen Genora brought Azazel in for questioning on October 15, 1992. They met him at the police station, a stark contrast to the comforting atmosphere of his church. Azazel maintained a calm demeanor, but there was a noticeable tension in his eyes. During the interrogation, the detectives asked Azazel about his relationship with Myra. He spoke fondly of her, but avoided details about their conflicts. However, the detectives knew from Myra's friends that she often clashed with her father. Azazel disapproved of Myra's independence and her love for books, which he saw as a rebellion against his strict beliefs, a common situation in a region where only 31% of women can read. Azazel's alibi was weak. He claimed to have been at home alone on the night of Myra's murder, reading the Book of Revelations and preparing his sermon. When asked if anyone could verify his whereabouts, Azazel became defensive, insisting his word should be enough. The detectives pressed further, asking about any recent arguments with Myra. Azazel admitted to a heated disagreement a few days before her death, but downplayed its significance. He said it was a typical father-daughter dispute. However, the detectives knew that Myra had confided in friends about her father's controlling nature and his anger over her reading habits. Despite his outward calm, Azazel showed signs of nervousness. He fidgeted with his hands and avoided direct eye contact. But detectives noted these behaviors, sensing there was more beneath the surface. Azazel's motive seemed clear. He wanted to control Myra's life and eliminate anything he saw as a threat to his authority. To gather more evidence, the police obtained a search warrant for Azazel's house. Inside, they found a hidden room in the basement. The room contained disturbing items, including restraints and various books on punishment and control. This discovery painted a darker picture of Azazel's true nature and his obsession with dominance. As the investigation continued, Azazel remained a prime suspect. His secretive and controlling behavior, combined with his weak alibi and the hidden room, made him a focal point for the detectives. They knew they had to keep digging to uncover the full truth behind Myra's tragic death. As the investigation into Myra Everson's murder continued, the detectives turned their attention to Janice Lovius. Janice was a 59-year-old oil driller from Oklahoma known for her determination and resourcefulness. She had a reputation for uncovering difficult truths and was known for her tenacity in the male-dominated field of oil drilling. On October 17, 1992, Detectives Samuel E. Mera and Karen Genora traveled to Oklahoma to interview Janice. They met her at her modest home, which was filled with mementos from her work and travels. Janice greeted them with a firm handshake, her eyes sharp and inquisitive. During the interview, Janice spoke openly about her relationship with Myra. She admitted that they had become close friends and had even formed a sexual relationship. Janice revealed that Myra had hired her to kill Reverend Azazel Everson after he beat her for reading a novel by the novelist Joyce Lehman. Janice explained that she had grown protective of Myra and wanted to help her escape her father's control. When asked about her whereabouts on the night of Myra's murder, Janice provided a solid alibi. She was working on an oil rig out in West Texas and had several coworkers who could confirm her presence. Despite her strong alibi, the detectives were intrigued by her connection to Myra and her deep-seated hatred for Azazel. Janice described Azazel as a cruel and manipulative man who used his position as a preacher to control and abuse his daughter. She spoke passionately about how she wanted to free Myra from his grasp. Although she admitted to planning to kill Azazel, she insisted she had nothing to do with Myra's murder. Throughout the interview, Janice remained calm and composed. She answered the detectives' questions directly and showed no signs of nervousness. Her demeanor and clear alibi made it difficult for the detectives to connect her directly to the murder. However, her close relationship with Myra and her intense dislike for Azazel kept her on their radar. As the investigation into Janice continued, the detectives knew they had to explore every angle. Her strong alibi and open demeanor contrasted sharply with the disturbing nature of the crime, leaving the detectives with more questions than answers. They remained determined to uncover the truth and bring justice to Myra Everson. On October 20, 1992, Bentonville was experiencing a crisp, clear morning. At around 9:00 a.m., a local jogger was running along a wooded trail near Myra Everson's home. As he made his way through the path, he noticed something unusual in the bushes. Curious, he stopped to take a closer look and discovered a small, blood-stained bag partially buried under some leaves. He quickly called the police, and Detective Samuel E. Mera and Detective Karen Genora arrived at the scene shortly after. They carefully retrieved the bag and examined its contents. Inside, they found 3 severed fingers wrapped in a piece of cloth. The detectives immediately realized these were likely Myra's missing fingers. The discovery of the bag and fingers was a significant breakthrough in the case. The detectives meticulously documented the evidence and sent the bag to the forensics lab for further analysis. The lab confirmed that the fingers belonged to Myra, and the cloth was identified as part of a shirt belonging to Reverend Azazel Everson. The detectives interviewed Brian Daniels to gather more information about the discovery. Ryan described how he stumbled upon the bag while jogging and noted that he hadn't seen anyone suspicious in the area. His account was clear and straightforward, providing the detectives with a better understanding of how the evidence had been hidden. With this new evidence, the detectives turned their attention back to Reverend Azazel Everson. They believed the discovery of the fingers and the cloth linked him more closely to the crime. They obtained a search warrant for his home and conducted a thorough search. Inside Azazel's bedroom, they found a blood-stained shirt that matched the cloth found in the bag. This discovery further implicated Azazel in Myra's murder. The police also re-interviewed Lee Harrington, Myra's friend who had found her body. Lee recalled that Myra had been worried about her father's increasingly erratic behavior in the days leading up to her death. Myra had confided in Lee about her fear that her father might harm her. This testimony, combined with the new evidence, strengthened the case against Azazel. Detectives Myra and Janora knew they were getting closer to solving the case. The discovery of the bag and the forensic evidence provided crucial links that pointed towards Azazel as the prime suspect. The detectives continued to gather evidence, determined to bring justice to Myra Everson and uncover the full truth behind her tragic death. As the investigation into Myra Everson's murder progressed, Detectives Samuel Myra and Karen Janora discovered another tragic connection. On October 22, 1992, they received a report about the murder of Faria Haddon, a 28-year-old woman living in the nearby town of Fayetteville. Faria, like Myra, had been strangled with a belt, and 3 fingers were ripped off her left hand. Faria was known for her ambition and dedication to her work as an escort. She was discreet about her job, but had been in a secret relationship with Reverend Azazel Everson for over a year. Detectives Myra and Janora quickly realized the connection between the 2 murders and decided to investigate further. They traveled to Faria's apartment, a small but tidy place decorated with simple but elegant furnishings. Inside, the crime scene was eerily similar to Myra's. The living room showed signs of a struggle, with furniture overturned and a blood-stained belt lying on the floor. Faria's body was found in the same manner as Myra's, with her fingers missing. Detectives interviewed Faria's neighbors and acquaintances. They learned that Faria admired Azazel's charisma and saw him as her escape from a life of poverty. She had confided in a close friend about her relationship with Azazel. The friend described Faria as a hopeful and driven person who wanted a better life for herself. The detectives also found a diary in Faria's apartment where she had written about her relationship with Azazel. The diary entries revealed that Faria had discovered something disturbing about Azazel's secret life. She had found evidence linking him to illegal drug running and was planning to confront him. This discovery provided a possible motive for her murder. During the investigation, the detectives interrogated Azazel again. He was visibly more nervous this time, but he maintained his innocence. He admitted to knowing Faria, but denied any involvement in her death. His alibi for the night of Faria's murder was weak, just like his alibi for Myra's murder. Despite Azazel's denials, the detectives continued to dig deeper. They cross-referenced evidence from both crime scenes and found striking similarities. The belts used in both murders were of the same brand and size, and the method of strangulation was identical. The detectives also found fibers from Azazel's clothes on both victims, further implicating him in the crimes. The investigation into Faria's murder added a new layer of complexity to the case. The detectives were now dealing with a serial killer who had targeted 2 women connected to Azazel. They knew they had to act quickly to prevent any further tragedies and bring the murderer to justice. On October 25, 1992, Bentonville, Arkansas, woke up to a cool, rainy morning. Detective Samuel Myra and Detective Karen Janora had just received a breakthrough in their investigation. Forensic analysis of the evidence from both Myra Everson and Faria Haddon's murders pointed to a new suspect, Mark David Lilius, the husband of Janelise Lilius. Mark David, a 61-year-old traveling revivalist preacher, was known for his charismatic sermons. However, his public persona hid a dark secret. He was leading a double life as a serial killer. He had carefully constructed an alibi by frequently traveling, which made it difficult to connect him to the crimes initially. Detective Myra and Detective Janora pieced together that Mark David had murdered Myra to prevent her from exposing his double life. Myra had discovered incriminating evidence against Mark David through his wife, Jannalise, with whom she had a sexual relationship. Faria had also found evidence of Mark David's involvement in Myra's affair and planned to confront him. To silence her, he killed her in the same brutal manner. The detectives coordinated with local police in Tulsa to track down Mark David. On the evening of October 25, they located him at a revival meeting he was hosting. The weather was stormy, with heavy rain pounding on the roof of the small church where he happened to be preaching. The police moved in quietly, not wanting to alarm the attendees. Mark David was taken into custody without resistance. He seemed surprised by the arrest but remained calm. At the police station, he was interrogated by detectives Myra and Janora. Initially, he denied any involvement, but the overwhelming evidence against him quickly broke down his facade. He confessed to the murders, explaining that he killed Myra and Faria to protect his secret life as a serial killer. He believed that if his double life were exposed, it would ruin his reputation and his wife's trust. His calm demeanor during the confession was chilling, revealing the cold and calculating nature of his crimes. The arrest of Mark David Lilius brought a mix of relief and sorrow to Bentonville. Myra's family, devastated by the loss, expressed a sense of closure knowing the murderer was caught. Faria's friends and family also found some peace in the justice served. The detectives felt the sense of accomplishment, but were also saddened by the brutal nature of the crimes. They had worked tirelessly to bring justice to Myra and Faria, and now their efforts had paid off. Bentonville could begin to heal, knowing that the person responsible for these heinous acts was behind bars. In June of 1994, the trial of Mark David Lilius, the murderer of Myra Everson and Faria Haddon, began in Bentonville, Arkansas. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Sarah Jane Kersey, a seasoned lawyer known for her dedication to justice. The defense attorney was Robert Luley, a skilled lawyer with a reputation for defending high-profile cases. The courtroom was packed with spectators, eager to see justice served for the victims. Myra's family, including her sister Lyra Everson, sat in the front row, their faces filled with a mix of grief and determination. Faria's friends and supporters were also present, showing solidarity with her memory. During the trial, the prosecution presented a compelling case against Mark David Lilius. They called witnesses, including Detective Samuel Myra and forensic experts, to testify about the evidence linking Mark David to the murders. They also played recordings of Mark David's confession, highlighting his chilling admission of guilt. District Attorney Kersey argued that Mark David's motive for the murders was to protect his double life as a serial killer. She painted him as a cold and calculating individual who was willing to kill to preserve his reputation and keep his secrets hidden. Her impassioned closing argument resonated with the jury and the spectators alike. Defense attorney Robert Luley attempted to create doubt in the minds of the jurors. He questioned the reliability of the evidence and argued that Mark David's confession may have been coerced. He also portrayed Mark David as a devoted man of faith and pillar of the community, trying to humanize him in the eyes of the jury. After several weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Mark David Lilius was found guilty on all counts of murder. The courtroom erupted in applause as the verdict was read aloud. Myra's family embraced each other, tears of relief stringing down their faces. Faria's friends hugged each other tightly, finding solace in the knowledge that justice had been served for their friend. Mark David was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentence brought closure to the families of Myra and Faria, knowing that Mark David would spend the rest of his life behind bars. The trial and sentencing of Mark David Lilius marked the end of a long and painful chapter for Bentonville. The community could finally begin to heal, knowing that the person responsible for the murders had been held accountable for his actions. After the trial and sentencing of Mark David Lilius, life in Bentonville began to return to a semblance of normalcy. Myra Everson and Faria Haddon were remembered fondly by their loved ones, who found solace in their memories. For Myra's family, the verdict brought a sense of closure, but the pain of her loss lingered. Her sister, Lydia Everson, continued to honor her memory by volunteering at the homeless shelter where Myra had worked. Lydia found comfort in helping others, knowing it was what Myra would have wanted. Faria's friends organized a memorial event in her honor, inviting members of the community to share their memories of her. They created a scholarship fund in her name to support young women pursuing higher education, a cause that Faria had been passionate about. Detectives Samuel Imera and Karen Janora were hailed as heroes for their tireless efforts in solving the case. They received awards for their dedication to justice and continued to serve the community with distinction. As for Janelise Lilius, she struggled to come to terms with the truth about her husband's crimes. She distanced herself from the media attention surrounding the trial and focused on rebuilding her life. Despite the betrayal she felt, she found solace in the support of friends and family. The people of Bentonville rallied together in the aftermath of the trial, united in their determination to move forward. They held fundraisers and community events to support the families of the victims and to raise awareness about domestic violence and the importance of seeking help. Bentonville, once haunted by tragedy, emerged stronger than ever, a testament to the power of unity and justice. In the heart of America's breadbasket, Omaha, Nebraska, Melanie Vandermeer, a 34-year-old bank employee, lived a life marked by ambition and familial love. A graduate of Creighton University, she had majored in finance, a field she navigated with precision and passion. As a mother to 3-month-old Addison and wife to Peter Vandermeer, Melanie's life was a tapestry of modern motherhood and career aspirations. Melanie's colleagues at the First National Bank of Omaha knew her as a diligent worker, often staying late to ensure her clients' needs were met. Her LinkedIn profile, a relatively new phenomenon in June of 2005, showcased endorsements for her financial acumen and dedication. At home, Melanie was the nucleus of her family, her relationship with her husband Peter appearing to be a testament to partnership and mutual support, at least on the surface. Her family, including her sister Emily and parents John and Diane, were fixtures in her life. They often gathered for Sunday dinners, a tradition that Melanie cherished. These intimate gatherings were a blend of old and new, where stories from the past mingled with discussions of the latest episode of Desperate Housewives, a show Melanie enjoyed for its portrayal of complex women. Melanie's dreams extended beyond the confines of her immediate world. She envisioned a future where her daughter would have opportunities she had worked hard to secure. Only days before her death, Melanie had excitedly spoken of plans to enroll Addison in the prestigious Brown L. Talbot School, ensuring a head start for her education. As Melanie and Peter boarded their flight to Cancun, a couple's only trip to celebrate their second marriage anniversary, her thoughts were a mix of anticipation for the sandy beaches she'd seen in Travel and Leisure magazine and a well-deserved break from the rigors of new parenthood. Little did she know that this journey to paradise would be her last. On June 15, 2005, as the early morning sun cast a golden hue over the white sands of Cancun, a grim discovery disrupted the serene ambience of this tropical haven. At approximately 6:30 a.m., with the resort town slowly stirring to life, Maria Hernandez, an 82-year-old local known for her daily beachcombing rituals, stumbled upon a scene that would haunt the peaceful shores and make headlines far beyond the Yucatan Peninsula. The body of Melanie Vandermeer, still clad in a J.Crew bikini, a popular brand featured in the summer catalogs of that year, was found lifeless, embraced by the gentle yet relentless waves of the Gulf of Mexico. Maria, who had lived through the transformation of Cancun from a sleepy fishing village to a bustling tourist hotspot, was no stranger to the occasional aftermath of nighttime revelries left on the beach. However, the sight of Melanie's body was an inconceivable departure from the norm. The local authorities were notified promptly, thanks to a nearby tourist who lent Maria his Nokia cell phone, a device that had become a staple in the connectivity of the era. The police arrived on the scene with a sense of urgency, a response time reflecting the gravity of the situation and the potential impact on Cancun's image as a safe and exotic getaway, frequently featured in the pages of Condé Nast Traveler. The weather, typically idyllic for this time of year, seemed to mourn with a somber sky and a gentle breeze that offered no solace to the first responders. The beach, usually adorned with sun loungers and vibrant umbrellas, was now cordoned off with yellow tape, standing in stark contrast to the picturesque setting that had drawn Melanie and countless others to its shores. Maria, with decades of life etched into her weathered face, displayed a stoic calmness that belied the shock of her discovery. Her statement to the police was clear and concise, providing the initial narrative to what would become a complex and heart-wrenching investigation into the untimely death of a young mother and wife. The arrival of the Quintana Roo police at the now secluded section of Cancun's coastline was swift, a testament to the Mexican authorities' commitment to maintaining the resort's image, as depicted in glossy brochures, a sun-soaked retreat from the daily grind. Detectives Alejandro Ruiz and Sofia Blanco, seasoned officers with years of experience between them, were met with a scene that juxtaposed the natural beauty of the locale with a chilling narrative. The date was June 15, 2005, a time when the world's eyes were often fixed on the developments of the Iraq War, broadcasted by CNN and other 24-hour news channels. Yet here, the only conflict was between the tranquility of the resort town and the violence suggested by the discovery at its shore. The weather, a balmy 82 degrees with a light breeze, seemed incongruous with the gravity of the crime scene. Detective Ruiz, with his stern demeanor and sharp eye for detail, noted the absence of struggle. The sand around Melanie's body was undisturbed, save for the impressions left by Maria Hernandez's early morning discovery. Detective Blanco, known for her empathy and keen intuition, observed the victim's peaceful expression, a stark contrast to the brutality of her demise. The crime scene was devoid of the expected chaos that accompanies violence. There was no blood, no signs of a conventional struggle. The detectives surmised that Melanie had been drowned, a hypothesis that would later be confirmed by the medical examiner. The Gulf waters had cleansed any immediate evidence, leaving the investigators to rely on forensic methods that were becoming increasingly sophisticated, even as shows like CSI, Crime Scene Investigation, popularized them to the public. The police meticulously documented the scene, utilizing digital cameras, a relatively new addition to their investigative toolkit, to capture the area in detail. They collected samples of sand and water near the body, hoping that the burgeoning field of forensic science might yield microscopic clues. The absence of Melanie's personal effects suggested a robbery or an attempt to conceal her identity, complicating the case further. As the sun climbed higher, casting a harsh light on the grim task at hand, the detectives knew that the answers they sought might be as elusive as the motives behind this tragic end to a vacation that promised relaxation and renewal. As the investigation into Melanie Vandermeer's untimely death unfolded, the focus turned to her husband, Peter Vandermeer, a 35-year-old financial advisor. Amidst the swaying palms and sun-soaked beaches of Cancun, a stark contrast to the couple's quiet life in Omaha, Nebraska, Peter found himself at the center of a murder inquiry. With a reputation for ambition and a seemingly unwavering commitment to his family, Peter's life was under intense scrutiny. Peter's communications were being combed through by local authorities. Detectives sifted through call logs and messages, searching for inconsistencies in his account of their vacation, which coincided with the 2005 MTV Movie Awards buzz, an event Melanie had been excited to discuss during their trip. During the interrogation, held within the stark walls of the Cancun Police Department, Peter's composure was as fluctuating as the stock market he navigated for a living. He spoke of their plans to visit the renowned Chichen Itza ruins and how they had dined at the Hard Rock Cafe Cancun just the night before Melanie's disappearance. Yet, when pressed about rumors of marital strife, his demeanor shifted. His hands, which had calmly folded a napkin from the cafe into neat squares on the table, now clenched into fists. The detectives noted Peter's agitation when they inquired about the couple's financial situation, which was reportedly strained due to his recent investment in the real estate boom. Considered precarious by some after the 2005 housing market predictions, Peter vehemently denied any discord, attributing any perceived tension to the normal stress of parenting a new baby and Melanie's ambition to ascend the corporate ladder at her bank. However, the police had uncovered evidence of several heated exchanges between Peter and Melanie, captured by the hotel's security cameras. These exchanges painted a picture of a relationship fraying at the edges, despite the idyllic setting. The investigation was further complicated by the discovery of a substantial life insurance policy taken out on Melanie, with Peter as the sole beneficiary, a common trope in true crime tales that raised eyebrows among the investigators. As the interrogation stretched into the evening, the detectives were aware that the burden of proof lay heavy on their shoulders. Cancun, a city pulsating with the rhythm of nightlife and the whispers of Caribbean winds, was now the backdrop of a narrative that had shifted from romantic getaway to sinister plot. The investigation into Melanie Vandermeer's death took a dramatic turn with the questioning of Tommy Walker, a 23-year-old Australian backpacker whose nomadic lifestyle had led him to the white sands of Cancun. His rugged charm and the allure of adventure had captivated Melanie, resulting in a clandestine affair that now placed him in the crosshairs of a murder investigation. Tommy's arrival in Cancun had been part of a broader itinerary that included the world's most exotic locales, a journey he meticulously documented on his blog, a popular medium in the burgeoning age of social media. His digital footprint, including check-ins at Cancun's Coco Bongo Club the night of June 14th, provided the police with a timeline of his movements. The interrogation took place against the backdrop of a series of benefit concerts aimed at combating global poverty, mirroring the stark contrast between Tommy's free-spirited existence and the gravity of the situation at hand. His defense was as unwavering as the global resolve to make poverty history. Detectives probed Tommy about his relationship with Melanie, questioning whether jealousy might have driven him to an act of violence. The Australian, sporting a Billabong tank top and a sunburned demeanor, maintained his innocence. He recounted their last meeting, insisting it was nothing more than a farewell before he continued his travels to the next destination on his list, which included the recently opened Disneyland Hong Kong. Despite his assertions of innocence, the police were skeptical. The affair had been a poorly kept secret, whispers of which had even reached the ears of the staff at the Moon Palace resort where the Vandermeers were staying. Tommy's passport and belongings were seized, revealing a postcard addressed to Melanie, the message on the back unfinished and a tone, one of longing. As the interrogation concluded, Tommy's fate hung in the balance, much like the Space Shuttle Discovery, which was grounded due to fuel sensor issues, delaying its much-anticipated return to flight. The investigators were left to ponder whether Tommy Walker's desire for freedom had been eclipsed by a darker impulse. On June 17th, as Cancun's tourist throngs reveled in the summer heat, a breakthrough emerged in the Vandermeer case. A local vendor, sifting through the sands to set up his beachside souvenir stand, unearthed Melanie's missing purse. The discovery, mere meters from the Moon Palace resort, reignited the investigation with newfound urgency. The sandy handbag, a Coach leather tote, a recent anniversary gift from Peter, contained more than the usual vacationer's essentials. Among the items were Melanie's hotel key card, a half-empty bottle of Banana Boat sunscreen, and a torn piece of paper that bore an enigmatic message written in what appeared to be Melanie's own hand. The cryptic note, partially smeared by sunscreen, seemed to be an unfinished sentence or a hastily scribbled thought. It read, "Meet me where the sun whispers goodbye," a phrase that detectives speculated could point to a clandestine meeting on the beach, perhaps with her lover, Tommy, or another unknown individual. The contents of the purse were meticulously cataloged and analyzed. Forensic technicians dusted for fingerprints, while digital specialists attempted to extract any latent data from the keycard, which might shed light on her final movements, a technique growing in sophistication. The case had all the hallmarks of a sensational story, a picturesque setting, a young mother's tragic end, and a narrative rife with potential jealousy and betrayal. As the summer sun set on another day in paradise, the investigation into Melanie Vandermeer's death had taken a significant turn. The authorities hoped the purse would be a game-changer in uncovering the truth behind the tragedy. The serene shores of Cancun, usually a refuge for sunseekers, became the backdrop for a complex investigation as attention shifted to Maria Hernandez, the 82-year-old local who first stumbled upon Melanie Vandermeer's body. Maria, a fixture on the beach, supported her family through what tourists left behind, her life story a stark contrast to the carefree vacationers surrounding her. Detectives delved into Maria's background, uncovering a life marked by resilience and hardship. Her daily routine, as unchanging as the tides, involved combing the beach each morning, a practice she had maintained for decades. This consistency, coupled with her discovery of the body, prompted authorities to consider her a person of interest. During her questioning, which took place in a room that felt as cold and clinical as the air-conditioned lobbies of the nearby luxury resorts, Maria maintained a stoic composure. Her account was detailed and precise, reminiscent of the factual reporting style seen in the pages of National Geographic, which featured an article on the resilience of the elderly. Investigators probed for a motive, speculating on a theft gone wrong. However, Maria's history was devoid of any criminal entanglements. Much like the pristine beaches she walked were free of the seaweed that often washed ashore elsewhere. Her hands, weathered from years of labor, showed no signs of a struggle, and her alibi for the time of Melanie's disappearance was corroborated by other locals. As the interrogation unfolded, Maria, despite the investigators' initial suspicions, emerged more as a witness than a perpetrator. The detectives concluded their session with Maria, her account leaving them with more questions than answers. The pursuit of justice for Melanie Vandermeer continued, the case unfolding like the plot of a John Grisham novel, each chapter revealing new complexities. The investigation into Melanie Vandermeer's death culminated in a revelation that would shock the tranquil community of Cancun. The evidence meticulously gathered and analyzed by local law enforcement pointed to one individual, Peter Vandermeer, the victim's husband. The man who had presented himself as a grieving spouse was unmasked as the architect of a premeditated murder. Peter's facade began to crumble as detectives pieced together a timeline that contradicted his initial statements. Hotel surveillance footage, time-stamped and unambiguous in its storytelling, showed Peter's movements on the night of Melanie's disappearance. The footage, as revealing as the exposés featured in Time magazine, contradicted his alibi. Further incriminating evidence emerged from the couple's electronic devices. Emails retrieved from Melanie's BlackBerry, a device that had become synonymous with business communications, revealed a marriage fraught with tension and conflict. Peter's own laptop, a sleek Dell Inspiron which had been advertised as the perfect tool for the on-the-go professional, contained deleted files that were recovered by forensic experts. These files included internet searches for life insurance payouts and the effects of saltwater drowning. The case against Peter Vandermeer was becoming as clear as the high-definition images broadcasted by a newly launched HD channel. The motive was a tapestry of betrayal, humiliation, and financial gain. Peter had learned of Melanie's affair through a message on her Nokia phone, a model praised for its reliability, and the revelation had ignited a murderous plan fueled by jealousy and rage. In the days leading up to the murder, Peter had been seen purchasing a large life insurance policy on Melanie, naming himself as the sole beneficiary. This policy, coupled with the couple's recent enrollment in an American Express travel insurance plan, painted a grim picture of premeditation. As the local community absorbed the news, the idyllic image of Cancun was temporarily overshadowed by a narrative of domestic tragedy. The case against Peter Vandermeer was airtight, his arrest imminent, and the facade of the perfect family holiday was shattered forever. As the tropical storm clouds gathered over Cancun's horizon on June 20th, a different tempest was unfolding within the confines of the local police station. Peter Vandermeer, once the bereaved husband, was apprehended by authorities in connection with the murder of his wife, Melanie Vandermeer. The arrest marked a somber resolution to a case that had gripped the seaside city. The evidence against Peter had mounted steadily, with the meticulous work of the Cancun detectives mirroring the precision of a Swiss watch, a symbol of the same luxury Peter aspired to provide for his family. The detectives had constructed a detailed timeline of Melanie's final hours, corroborated by hotel surveillance footage and witness testimonies, which now pointed irrefutably to Peter's involvement. His apprehension occurred discreetly, away from the prying lenses of tourist digital cameras, which were becoming increasingly prevalent, much like the Canon EOS 350D that had been released earlier that year. Peter's demeanor during the arrest was one of disbelief. He appeared as disoriented as someone waking from a dream, his reality irrevocably altered. The news of Peter's arrest spread quickly, traveling through the channels of local media with fervor. The case had all the elements of a primetime drama, and public interest was piqued. Melanie's family, who had flown in from Nebraska, a state known for its rolling plains rather than sandy beaches, was present at the station. The mix of emotions was palpable: relief at the progress of the investigation, intertwined with the profound grief of loss. The Vandermeer family had been regular attendees at the Heartland Church back home, seeking solace in their faith, which was now tested in the most tragic of circumstances. As Peter was escorted to a holding cell, the storm outside unleashed its fury on Cancun. The sound of rain on the police station roof provided a grim soundtrack to the unfolding events. The arrest marked the beginning of a new chapter in the case, one that would lead to the judicial system where evidence would be weighed and a verdict rendered. The trial of Peter Vandermeer, set against the backdrop of a Cancun summer, commenced with the weight of expectation. The evidence laid out before the court was as compelling as the latest investigative series gracing the cover of Rolling Stone. Hotel surveillance footage, email correspondences, and the damning life insurance policy painted a portrait of a man driven to the brink by infidelity and financial desire. Defense attorney Miguel Torres, known for his advocacy as robust as the defense strategies outlined in John Grisham's legal thrillers, pleaded for leniency. He highlighted Peter's lack of criminal history and his role as a father, drawing a parallel to the public's sympathy for Martha Stewart, who had recently returned to the limelight after her own legal battles. The courtroom, with its charged atmosphere, could have been the set of a courtroom drama series, a stark contrast to the usual tranquility of the seaside town. Melanie's family, a constant presence in the gallery, clung to each other, their emotions as turbulent as the stormy season that had just passed. When the verdict was announced, the word guilty resonated through the room, definitive and irrevocable. The sentencing that followed was severe, as if to match the gravity of Peter's actions. The judge cited the premeditated nature of the crime, delivering a sentence that ensured Peter would spend the majority of his remaining years behind bars. Outside the courthouse, the media frenzy was reminiscent of the buzz surrounding the Live 8 concerts, which had taken place that same summer. Opinions on the verdict were divided. Some felt justice had been served, while others debated the complexities of the human heart and the concept of retribution. As the Van der Meer case closed, the family left the courthouse to begin the arduous process of healing. The foundation established in Melanie's name promised to keep her memory alive, a testament to the enduring spirit of a life taken too soon. In the wake of the trial that captivated Cancun, life gradually resumed its rhythm. Maria Hernandez, the elderly beachcomber who had discovered Melanie Van der Meer's body, returned to her daily search for treasures along the shore. The brief brush with the law had left an imprint on her, yet it became just another story in her long life, much like the tale she shared with her grandchildren. Tommy Walker, the Australian backpacker whose affair with Melanie had entangled him in the investigation, continued his global journey. However, the carefree spirit he once embodied seemed dimmed. The beaches of Cancun were replaced by new horizons, but his travel blog, now with a more reflective tone, occasionally hinted at the shadows of the past. The detectives who had worked tirelessly on the case, Alejandro Ruiz and Sofia Blanco, received commendations for their dedication. Their success in solving the case was discussed in law enforcement circles with the same respect as the latest advancements in forensic technology featured in journals like Forensic Magazine. Melanie's family, back in Omaha, sought to honor her memory through activism. The foundation they established focused on supporting victims of domestic violence, a mission that provided a channel for their grief and a legacy for Melanie. The foundation's work garnered attention, much like the social justice causes championed by celebrities at the Live 8 concerts that summer. The Van der Meer case had become a cautionary tale, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind the facade of marital bliss. It served as a narrative that echoed the complexities of human relationships explored in popular shows like Desperate Housewives, which dominated television screens at the time. As Cancun's palm trees swayed in the gentle breeze and the turquoise waters of the Gulf of Mexico continued to lap at the sandy beaches, the tragedy of Melanie Van der Meer remained a poignant chapter in the city's history, a story of paradise lost to the destructive forces of jealousy and revenge. The tragic case of Melanie Van der Meer reminds us that paradise can sometimes mask the darkest of human emotions. As we close this chapter of True Crime Case Files, we are left to ponder the fragility of life and the lengths to which a broken heart will go to seek retribution. Lily Vivens, a warm-hearted and caring individual, was a pillar of her family. At the age of 40, she dedicated her life to her husband and 2 children, Vicky and Becton, ensuring their happiness and well-being. Her nurturing personality extended beyond the confines of her home, as she actively participated in her children's lives, organizing playdates and engaging in various activities that fostered their growth and development. She was known among her friends and neighbors as a pillar of support, always ready with a listening ear and a helping hand. In addition to her role as a loving mother, Lily pursued her passion for writing as a freelance writer. She immersed herself in the world of online publications, contributing articles that showcased her talent and creativity. Lily's dedication to her craft was evident in every piece she produced, capturing the attention of readers and earning her a respectable reputation within the writing community. March of 2004 was a time of hope and anticipation for Lily. The cherry blossoms bloomed, painting the streets of Beaverton, Oregon with delicate shades of pink. The local community buzzed with excitement for the upcoming St. Patrick's Day Parade, a cherished tradition that brought together people from all walks of life. As we delve deeper into this true crime case, we will unravel the web of deception that entangled Lily Vivens. Join us as we navigate the twists and turns of this tragic tale, questioning the true nature of those closest to Lily in a quest for knowledge and justice. In a quiet neighborhood of Beaverton, Oregon, tragedy struck on the morning of March 29, 2004. Lily Vivens, a devoted wife and mother, met a horrifying fate within the walls of her own home. The discovery of her lifeless body sent shockwaves through the close-knit community, leaving friends and family in a state of disbelief. The grim revelation was made by Patty Berlin, a trusted family friend who had come over for a routine visit. Little did she know that this visit would forever change her life. As Patty entered the Vivens residence, the atmosphere seemed eerily still. The air carried a sense of unease, as if a dark secret was lurking behind closed doors. As she made her way through the house, Patty's heart sank when she stumbled upon Lily's lifeless body. The room was filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the sound of Patty's trembling breath. She immediately dialed emergency services, her voice filled with anguish as she relayed the devastating news to the dispatcher. Within minutes, the police arrived at the scene, their sirens piercing the tranquility of the neighborhood. The officers carefully examined the crime scene, meticulously documenting every detail. The room where Lily's body lay became a haunting tableau of sorrow and unanswered questions. News of the tragic incident spread like wildfire throughout the community. The local media outlets, such as the Beaverton Tribune and KATU News, were quick to report on the shocking discovery. The town, usually known for its peaceful, blandly suburban charm, was now gripped by a sense of fear and uncertainty. The tragic investigation into the death of Lily Vivens would prove to be a complex and arduous task for the authorities as they sought to uncover the truth behind this chilling crime. The Beaverton Police Department swiftly responded to the distressing call on the morning of March 29, 2004. Detectives Audrey Buscare and Rainey Pochette, seasoned investigators with a reputation for their unwavering determination, were assigned to the case. As they arrived at the scene, a sense of urgency filled the air, and their focused expressions mirrored the gravity of the situation. The crime scene, Lily Vivens' terrene home, became the center of meticulous scrutiny. Every inch of the house was combed through with painstaking precision as the detectives sought to unravel the truth behind Lily's untimely demise. The room where she was tragically suffocated to death with a pillow presented a haunting sight. The air hung heavy with the scent of despair, as if the very walls mourned the loss of a beloved member of the community. Despite the absence of any visible signs of struggle or forced entry, the detectives were determined to leave no stone unturned. They meticulously examined every nook and cranny, searching for even the tiniest clue that could shed light on the chilling mystery. The atmosphere crackled with a mix of suspense and anticipation as the investigators methodically collected evidence, ensuring that no detail was overlooked. The investigation team's efforts were complemented by cutting-edge forensic technology, which brought a new level of precision to the examination of the crime scene. Dusting for fingerprints, analyzing DNA samples, and scouring the area for trace evidence became routine tasks for the forensic experts involved in the case. The room was transformed into a laboratory of truth, where science and logic intertwined in the pursuit of justice. As news of the shocking crime spread, the community of Beaverton united in grief and fear. The local media outlets, such as the Beaverton Gazette and the Oregon Daily News, covered the story extensively, highlighting the impact of the tragedy on the close-knit neighborhood. March of 2004 became a time of collective unease in Beaverton as the investigation continued to unfold. The detectives, driven by their commitment to justice, worked tirelessly day and night. The weight of responsibility rested on their shoulders as they sought to bring closure to Lily Vivens' grieving family and restore a sense of security to the community. Mike Vivens, a 46-year-old man from Beaverton, Oregon, became the prime suspect in the shocking murder case of his wife, Lily Vivens. The investigation revealed a web of secrets and lies that Mike had carefully hidden from his beloved wife. Described by neighbors as reserved and analytical, Mike had always presented himself as a devoted husband and father. However, behind closed doors, he was running an online business that was far from the idyllic family life he portrayed. The police, led by detectives Audrey Buscare and Rainey Pochette, delved deep into Mike's hidden world, uncovering a potential motive rooted in his fear of Lily discovering his illicit activities. Mike's secret online business was no ordinary venture. The investigation revealed that Mike had set up a sophisticated network of buyers and sellers using code names and encrypted communication channels to evade detection. He operated under the guise of a legitimate business, using a front company to launder money and cover his tracks. The police meticulously analyzed his financial records, tracing the flow of funds and uncovering a complex web of transactions that pointed directly to Mike's involvement in some illegal trade. As the detectives interrogated Mike, his facade of innocence began to crumble. Anger and defensiveness seeped through his carefully crafted veneer, raising suspicions among the investigators. The pieces of the puzzle started to fit together. Mike's possible motive became clear. He couldn't afford for Lily to discover the truth about his secret internet activities, as it would not only jeopardize his freedom and finances, but also expose their family to danger. As the case unfolded, the community of Beaverton watched with bated breath, wondering if the unassuming Mike Vivance was indeed capable of such a heinous act. The answer to that question lay buried in the gigabytes of data on his home computer and in the depths of the internet's shadowy corners. Wade Caterpie, a 24-year-old close friend of Lily Vivance, emerged as a person of interest in the ongoing investigation into her tragic death. In the tranquil suburban town of Beaverton, Oregon, where everyone seemingly knows everyone, Wade was known for his vibrant personality and close bond with Lily. However, beneath the friendly facade, there may have been a simmering envy towards Lily's husband, Mike Vivance. As the investigation deepened, detectives Audrey Buscare and Rainey Pochette turned their attention to Wade, seeking to uncover any potential motivations or involvement in this heinous crime. The police have been diligently piecing together the puzzle of Lily's murder, leaving no stone unturned. Wade's initial shock and disbelief upon hearing the news quickly transformed into a defensive stance as the police questioned him. He vehemently denied any wrongdoing, but the detectives remained steadfast in their pursuit of the truth. Their investigation has revealed a series of intriguing details surrounding Wade's relationship with Lily and his potential motive. The authorities uncovered evidence suggesting that Wade may have harbored deep-seated feelings of envy towards Mike Vivance. Friends and acquaintances recall Wade's occasional remarks about Mike's success and the seemingly perfect life he had built with Lily. These feelings of envy, coupled with Wade's close proximity to the couple, have raised suspicions among the investigators. Furthermore, the detectives discovered a series of heated arguments between Wade and Lily in the months leading up to her untimely demise. These arguments centered around Wade's discontent with his own life and his perceived inadequacies when compared to Mike. The police explored whether these arguments could have escalated into something far more sinister. As the investigation progresses, the detectives left no stone unturned. They were meticulously analyzing phone records, interviewing potential witnesses, and scrutinizing Wade's alibi during the time of the crime. The detectives are also examining Wade's online presence, searching for any clues that may shed light on his potential involvement. As the investigation into Lily Vivance's tragic murder unfolded, the police were met with a breakthrough that would send shockwaves through the community. On a rainy afternoon in Beaverton, Oregon, a passerby stumbled upon a hidden compartment in Mike Vivance's home office, unearthing a dark secret that would expose the true nature of his sinister activities. Inside the hidden compartment, the police discovered a trove of incriminating documents and records that revealed the extent of Mike's involvement in a clandestine online business. It was revealed that Mike was the owner-operator of a website known as Live Girls Now, which operated as an international online slave market for women and girls. The evidence collected painted a chilling picture of the operation. Detailed records showed the names, ages, and personal information of hundreds of victims, each one a tragic casualty of this heinous crime. The website had been operating for 5 years, exploiting vulnerable individuals and perpetuating a cycle of abuse, suffering, and slavery. The police wasted no time in seizing the evidence, meticulously documenting each piece to build a solid case against Mike Vivance. They worked tirelessly, cross-referencing the information with missing person reports and collaborating with law enforcement agencies across the globe to identify and rescue the victims involved. As news of the investigation spread, shockwaves rippled through the community, leaving residents in disbelief that such a dark operation could have been operating right under their noses. The case garnered significant media attention, with local news outlets shining a spotlight on the chilling crimes committed by Mike Vivance. March of 2004 became a turning point in the fight against human trafficking, as the revelations surrounding Live Girls now prompted a wave of public outrage and a renewed commitment to combat this insidious crime. Non-profit organizations and law enforcement agencies joined forces, launching awareness campaigns and dedicating resources to rescue victims and bring the perpetrators to justice. The investigation into Lily Vivance's murder had taken an unexpected turn, uncovering a web of darkness that extended far beyond the confines of her tragic demise. As the police continued their relentless pursuit of justice, they were determined to ensure that the victims of Live Girls Now would find solace and that Mike Vivance would face the full weight of the law. In a shocking turn of events, The investigation into Lily Vivant's tragic murder took an unexpected twist with the emergence of Harris Caltran, a 21-year-old amateur detective with a troubled past. Known for his run-ins with the law, Harris had a rap sheet filled with violence towards women, dating back to when he was just 12 years old. Despite his checkered history, Harris presented himself as a determined amateur detective seeking justice for Lily. The police, already grappling with the complexities of the case, turned their attention towards Harris. They interrogated him extensively, probing into his motives and potential involvement in the crime. Harris's anger and frustration were palpable as he vehemently denied any connection to Lily's murder. To understand Harris's possible involvement, the police delved into his background. They discovered that Harris had a fascination with true crime stories and had spent countless hours studying criminal investigations. His knowledge of forensic techniques and crime scene analysis, while amateur, was still impressive, leading some to believe he could be an asset to the investigation. As the investigation progressed, the police uncovered a series of emails exchanged between Harris and Lily. These emails revealed a shared interest in true crime and a mutual desire to uncover the truth. The police wondered if Harris's involvement went beyond mere curiosity. To further complicate matters, Harris had recently been involved in a local dispute with a group of individuals who were known to be involved in criminal activities. The police explored the possibility of a connection between this dispute and Lily's murder, but the evidence remained circumstantial at best. With the investigation still ongoing, the police were left with more questions than answers. Was Harris a genuine crusader for justice, or was he hiding a dark secret? Only time would tell. In a shocking turn of events, the true mastermind behind the heinous murder of Lily Vivant was revealed. After weeks of tireless investigation, the police identified and apprehended the culprit responsible for snuffing out the life of this beloved mother and freelance writer. Mike Vivant, the husband of the victim, was exposed as the cold-blooded murderer who orchestrated this chilling crime. Mike's motive was that he feared Lily's discovery of his illicit activities. The discovery of his secret online business, Live Girls Now, shed light on his sinister motives. This website, operating as an international online slave market for women and girls, was a dark and twisted operation, a sort of eBay for human beings that exploited the vulnerability of innocent lives. The evidence against Mike was overwhelming, leaving investigators with no doubt about his involvement in Lily's murder. The police found incriminating documents and records hidden in a secret compartment of his home office. These damning materials provided a glimpse into the depths of his depravity. It is truly horrifying to think that such a heinous enterprise was thriving right under the noses of his wife, kids, and the unsuspecting community. The police swiftly apprehended Mike Vivant, bringing an end to his reign of terror. The arrest took place in the very same town where the infamous Oregon Vortex, a mysterious natural phenomenon, had captured the attention of the nation just a few years prior. The arrest sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community of Beaverton, Oregon. Friends and neighbors were left in disbelief, struggling to reconcile the image they had of a devoted husband and father with the cold-blooded killer he turned out to be. This case serves as a stark reminder that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places, even within the confines of a seemingly idyllic suburban neighborhood. As the news of Mike Vivant's arrest spread, it served as a sobering reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind closed doors. It is a testament to the tireless efforts of law enforcement and the importance of community vigilance in safeguarding against such atrocities. The trial that followed the shocking murder of Lily Vivant in March 2004 gripped the small suburb of Beaverton, Oregon. As the courtroom doors swung open, District Attorney Rebecca Bylofsky and Defense Attorney David Dean Busker prepared to battle it out in front of a jury of 12 ordinary citizens. The prosecution wasted no time in presenting a compelling case against the defendant, Mike Vivant. With meticulous attention to detail, they painted a vivid picture of Lily's tragic fate and the sinister underbelly of Mike's secret internet business. Expert witnesses, such as forensic pathologists and computer analysts, took the stand to testify to the overwhelming evidence against the accused. One of the key pieces of evidence presented was the discovery of a hidden compartment in Mike's home office. Inside, the police found incriminating documents and records of his online slave market, Live Girls Now. The courtroom gasped in disbelief as the extent of Mike's depravity was revealed. The prosecution argued that Mike's fear of Lily uncovering his illicit activities drove him to commit the heinous act. Defense attorney David Dean Buscare fought tooth and nail to undermine the prosecution's case. He attempted to cast doubt on the validity of the evidence, questioning the reliability of witnesses and challenging the methods used to gather information. Buscare argued that the hidden compartment could have been tampered with, suggesting the possibility of a setup. After weeks of testimonies, cross-examinations, and impassioned closing arguments, the jury retired to deliberate. The town held its breath as the verdict was announced. Guilty, Mike Vivens was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole. As the courtroom emptied, Lily's family and friends found a bittersweet solace in the verdict. Justice had been served, but the void left by Lily's absence remained. The community, scarred by the tragedy, vowed to come together and support one another in the healing process. After the trial that captivated the small town of Beaverton, Oregon, the lives of those involved took different paths. Lily Vivens' family, still grappling with the pain of their loss, found solace in the support of their community. The local church, St. Mary's, organized a memorial service to honor Lily's memory, bringing together friends, neighbors, and even strangers who were touched by her kindness. The service was filled with tears and heartfelt tributes, as people shared stories of Lily's impact on their lives. Wade Caterpie, burdened by his unrequited love for Lily, sought help from a grief counselor named Dr. Darna Sanchez. Dr. Sanchez, a respected psychologist in the community, guided Wade through the process of healing and self-discovery. Through this journey, Wade learned to channel his emotions into positive outlets, such as writing poetry and volunteering at the local animal shelter. Harris Caltran, the amateur detective with a troubled past, continued his quest for justice. Inspired by Lily's tragic fate, Harris dedicated himself to advocating for victims of crime. He started a blog called Justice Seekers, where he shared stories of unsolved cases and raised awareness about the importance of community involvement in crime prevention. As for Mike Vivens, his life took a drastic turn behind bars. Incarcerated at the Oregon State Penitentiary, Mike was confined to a small cell surrounded by concrete walls and steel bars. Stripped of his freedom, he was forced to confront the consequences of his heinous actions. In prison, Mike underwent counseling and therapy to address the underlying issues that led him down a path of darkness. March of 2004 marked a turning point for the community of Beaverton. The tragic events surrounding Lily Vivens' murder shook the town to its core, but it also brought people together in a shared commitment to healing and justice. The story of Lily Vivens' murder serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath seemingly ordinary lives. It highlights the importance of trust, honesty, and the pursuit of justice. Mildred Labrila, a retired nurse aged 68, resided in Centerville, Ohio, a quiet suburban town nestled in the heartland of America. Known for her forceful nature and sharp tongue, Mildred was a force to be reckoned with in her community. Her days were spent in a small, modest house on Elm Street on Centerville's east side, where she lived alone. Despite her solitude, Mildred was never short of drama. She had a reputation for meddling in her family members' affairs, imposing her opinions and judgments on them with an iron fist. Her fierce loyalty, however, was unquestionable. She was willing to go to great lengths to protect her loved ones, even if it meant resorting to violence or crossing ethical boundaries. Mildred's difficult personality often led to heated confrontations within her family. Arguments would escalate and tempers would flare. The tension was frequently palpable, and neighbors would overhear the occasional shouting match. Rumors of Mildred's controlling nature spread like wildfire through the tight-knit community. But behind closed doors, there was more to Mildred than met the eye. She had a secret life, hidden beneath her stern exterior. Friends and neighbors were unaware of the depths of her darkness, the secrets she kept locked away. The facade she presented to the world was just that, a facade. As we delve deeper into Mildred's story, we will explore the events that unfolded in Centerville, Ohio, in July 1991. We will uncover the shocking secrets that lay dormant, waiting to be revealed. Join us as we piece together the puzzle of Mildred's life and the tragic turn it took. On a fateful summer morning in the quaint town of Centerville, Ohio, the tight-knit community was abruptly jolted from its peaceful slumber. July 18th, 1991 would forever be etched in the collective memory of Centerville's residents, as it marked the shocking discovery of Mildred Librila's lifeless body. Mildred, a retired nurse who had dedicated her life to caring for her family, met a tragic end within the confines of her own home on Elm Street. The tranquility of her sleep was abruptly shattered as a pillow was callously placed over her face, suffocating her in the darkness of the night. It was Angela Librila, Mildred's daughter-in-law, who stumbled upon this gruesome scene. The morning sun had just begun to cast its warm glow upon the world when Angela, with a mix of trepidation and curiosity, ventured into Mildred's bedroom. The sight that greeted her was nothing short of a nightmare. Angela's heart raced as she took in the surreal tableau before her. Her mother-in-law lay motionless on the bed, her face buried beneath the weight of the pillow. Panic and disbelief washed over Angela, her mind struggling to comprehend the horrifying reality that she had unwittingly stumbled upon. With trembling hands, Angela reached for the kitchen phone and dialed the emergency number, her voice quivering as she relayed the chilling details to the operator. The seconds stretched into an eternity as she anxiously awaited the arrival of the authorities, their presence offering a glimmer of hope in the face of this unimaginable tragedy. News of Mildred's untimely demise quickly spread throughout Centerville, a town unaccustomed to much gossip but no such heinous acts of violence. The tight-knit community, usually united in their shared sense of security, now found themselves gripped by fear and uncertainty. Whispers of speculation and theories filled the air, as neighbors huddled together, seeking solace and answers amidst the chaos. In the boringly quiet town of Centerville, Ohio, a dark cloud descended upon its close-knit Rust Belt community. The life of Mildred Librila, a retired nurse, took a tragic turn that fateful day. Known for her stern and serious nature, Mildred's demise would leave the town in shock and disbelief. Mildred, 68, was not one to shy away from expressing her opinions and judgments. Her sharp tongue and domineering personality often left her family members feeling suffocated. She meddled in their affairs, imposing her will on them with an iron fist. Despite her abrasive demeanor, Mildred's loyalty to her family knew no bounds. She was willing to go to great lengths to protect them, even if it meant crossing ethical boundaries or resorting to violence. It was on a warm July morning when Angela Librila, Mildred's daughter-in-law, made the horrifying discovery of Mildred's corpse. The Centerville Police Department responded swiftly to the distressing call. Detective Rollo Worster and Officer Oscar Grelovich were assigned to the case. With meticulous attention to detail, they combed through the crime scene, searching for any clues that would unravel the truth behind Mildred's untimely death. As they entered the room, the detectives were struck by the eerie cleanliness. There were no signs of struggle or forced entry, leaving them puzzled. The cause of death, suffocation, was determined through a thorough examination, but the question of who was responsible remained unanswered. Detective Worster and Officer Grelovich turned their attention to Mildred's personal life, hoping to uncover any potential motives or suspects. They interviewed family members, neighbors, and friends, piecing together the puzzle of her final days. Rumors circulated throughout the town, speculating on hidden secrets and clandestine affairs. The investigation into Mildred Librila's death captivated the small community of Centerville. Local newspapers and television stations covered the case extensively, with headlines splashed across the front pages. The town's residents were on edge, questioning their own safety and the trust they had placed in their neighbors. As the days turned into weeks, Detective Worster and Officer Grelovich tirelessly pursued every lead, determined to bring justice to Mildred and closure to the community. Their investigation would uncover a web of deceit, betrayal, and secrets that would shock Centerville to its core. Angela Librila, a 38-year-old woman from Centerville, Ohio, found herself at the center of a shocking crime investigation in July 1991. Angela, known for her kind-hearted nature and gentle demeanor, had long endured the torment of her mother-in-law, Mildred Librila. Mildred, a retired nurse and a woman of strong will, had a reputation for being stern and controlling. Her sharp tongue and domineering nature made her a force to be reckoned with in the Librila family. Angela, as her only daughter-in-law, bore the brunt of Mildred's wrath, enduring years of constant criticism and even physical abuse. The police, led by Detective Rollo Wurster and Officer Oscar Grelovich, focused their attention on Angela as the prime suspect in Mildred's tragic demise. The investigation aimed to uncover any possible motives that Angela might have had for committing such a heinous crime. During the interrogation, Angela's emotions were a mix of anger, frustration, and relief. Anger, stemming from the years of mistreatment she had endured at the hands of Mildred. Frustration, as she had often felt trapped and powerless in her own home. And finally, relief, as the burden of Mildred's control was finally lifted from her shoulders. The detectives delved into Angela's past, seeking to understand the dynamics of her relationship with Mildred. They discovered a pattern of abuse that stretched back years, with Angela enduring not only verbal assaults, but also physical beatings and even vicious whippings that would leave a legacy of scars on her back. The investigators meticulously documented the instances of abuse, building a case that would shed light on the toxic environment in which Angela had lived. As the investigation progressed, the detectives sought out witnesses who could provide insight into the volatile relationship between Mildred and Angela. Friends and neighbors were interviewed, painting a picture of a woman who ruled her family with an iron fist. The stories of Mildred's controlling behavior were corroborated by multiple sources, further strengthening Angela's claims of abuse. Despite the mounting evidence against Angela, the detectives remained open to other possibilities. They explored alternative theories, considering the potential involvement of other family members or even an unknown assailant. The investigation was far from over, and the truth behind Mildred's tragic demise still eluded the authorities. Jack Labrilla, a 40-year-old man and owner of the local Pizza Hut, became another person of interest in the ongoing investigation into the tragic death of his mother, Mildred Labrilla. As authorities delved deeper into the case, they uncovered a complex web of family dynamics and a history of physical and emotional abuse that may shed light on Jack's potential involvement. Jack, known for his passive demeanor and aversion to conflict, had long endured his mother's domineering personality. Over the decades, Mildred subjected Jack to near constant physical abuse, leaving him with deep emotional and physical scars. Despite the torment he endured, Jack chose to avoid confrontation, opting instead to maintain a semblance of peace within the family. However, his love and loyalty towards his wife, Angela Labrilla, may have pushed Jack to consider drastic measures to protect his family. Angela, who had also been questioned as a suspect, endured years of Mildred's constant criticism and even physical abuse. The couple had long dreamt of a life free from Mildred's oppressive presence, and the tension within the family had reached its breaking point. In the weeks leading up to the tragic event, neighbors reported witnessing heated vitriol between Mildred and Jack. These disputes often revolved around Angela and the couple's desire to break free from Mildred's control. The tension within the household had become palpable, and friends and family members had noticed a change in Jack's behavior. He appeared on edge and increasingly distant, as if burdened by a heavy secret. As investigators meticulously comb through the evidence, they are piecing together a timeline of events leading up to Mildred's death, scrutinizing Jack's movements and interactions in the days and hours preceding the crime, hoping to uncover any clues that may point to his involvement. The police also examined phone records and financial transactions to determine if Jack had any motive or opportunity to carry out such a heinous act. The investigation into the murder of Mildred Labrilla took a surprising turn when new evidence emerged, revealing a web of dark secrets within the peaceful town of Centerville, Ohio. On a stormy night in August 1991, Lana Briscoe, a neighbor of the Labrilla family, made a startling discovery that would send shockwaves through the community. Lana, a curious and observant woman, had always suspected that there was more to Mildred's life than met the eye. As she rummaged through her attic, searching for an old photo album, she stumbled upon a dusty box tucked away in a corner. Intrigued, Lana opened it and found a collection of letters, carefully preserved over the years. To her astonishment, the letters were exchanges between Mildred and her own daughter, Jana. The contents of these letters painted a picture of a complex and tumultuous sexual relationship. They revealed a love that was tainted by deep-seated resentment and a constant power struggle. As Lana read through the letters, she couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The words on the pages were filled with anger, frustration, and a longing for freedom. It was clear that Jana, despite her love for her mother, harbored a deep-seated hatred towards her. The letters detailed the emotional and psychological abuse that Mildred had subjected Jana to throughout their relationship. They spoke of a woman who controlled every aspect of her daughter's existence, leaving her feeling trapped and suffocated. It became evident that Jana's relationship with Mildred was far from an idyllic May-December love story. The police were stunned by this revelation. They had initially focused their investigation on Angela, Mildred's daughter-in-law, and Jack, her son. But now, with the emergence of these letters, Jana became a potential suspect as well. The detectives delved deeper into Jana's life, searching for any signs of motive or opportunity. In the small town of Centerville, Ohio, the investigation into the tragic murder of Mildred Labrilla took an unexpected turn when a new suspect emerged. Jana Briscoe, a 19-year-old neighbor known for her nosy nature and penchant for gossip, found herself under the watchful eye of law enforcement. Jana, with her outwardly friendly demeanor, had managed to hide a deep-seated resentment towards Mildred. But what shocked the police even more was the revelation of a secret sexual affair between the two women. As Lana Briscoe, a neighbor of Mildred and Jana's mother, stumbled upon a hidden stash of love letters exchanged between Mildred and Jana, the police realized they had a potential motive on their hands. During the interrogation, Jana's emotions were a mix of anger, guilt, and a twisted sense of satisfaction. She revealed that her relationship with Mildred was a complicated web of love and resentment. Jana had long been drawn to Mildred's domineering personality, but at the same time, she harbored deep-seated anger towards her. As the police dug deeper into Jana's background, they discovered a troubled past. Jana had always been an outsider, struggling to fit in with her peers. She found solace in her secret sexual relationship with Mildred, a woman who seemed to understand her in a way no one else did. But this connection was tainted by the constant power struggle between them. Jana's resentment towards Mildred stemmed from years of feeling controlled and manipulated. She resented the way Mildred used their relationship as a means of exerting power over her. The police began to piece together a motive, as Jana's desire to break free from Mildred's control became increasingly evident. The investigation into Jana's involvement in Mildred's murder continued, as the police delved into her alibi and gathered evidence. They meticulously combed through phone records, interviewed witnesses, and analyzed the letters exchanged between Jana and Mildred. As the town of Centerville buzzed with speculation, the police were determined to uncover the truth. The investigation into Jana Briscoe's potential role in the murder of Mildred Labrilla was far from over. In a stunning turn of events, the Centerville Police Department identified Angela Labrilla, 38, as the perpetrator behind the heinous murder of Mildred Labrilla, her mother-in-law. After an exhaustive investigation, Angela's motive for the crime was revealed, shedding light on the dark secrets that plagued this close-knit community in 1991. The investigation into Mildred's death began when Angela, who had endured years of abuse at the hands of her mother-in-law, made the horrifying discovery of Mildred's lifeless body. The scene was chilling, with a pillow placed forcefully over Mildred's face, suffocating her in her sleep. Angela, overwhelmed with shock and disbelief, immediately alerted the authorities, setting into motion a chain of events that would unravel the truth behind this tragic incident. As the investigation progressed, Angela, despite being known for her gentle demeanor and kind-hearted nature, emerged as the prime suspect. Her tumultuous relationship with Mildred, marked by constant criticism and physical abuse, including beatings and even whippings, provided a motive for the crime. The police interrogated Angela, desperate to uncover the truth behind Mildred's demise. Her response was a mix of anger, frustration, and a glimmer of relief, as she finally felt free from Mildred's control. After painstakingly piecing together the puzzle, the police ultimately identified Angela Labrilla as the murderer. Motivated by a desperate desire to escape Mildred's controlling influence and to protect her family from further harm, Angela took matters into her own hands. Suffocating Mildred with a pillow, she sought to free herself from her mother-in-law's grip and ensure her family's safety. The murder was a tragic consequence of Angela's fear and frustration, as she sought to regain control over her own life. The trial that followed Angela Librilla's arrest was a gripping and emotional journey that captivated the residents of Centerville, Ohio. District Attorney Brianna Alfonsi, known for her tenacity and sharp legal skills, led the prosecution's case against Angela. The courtroom was filled with tension as the trial unfolded, with the victim's family, friends, and curious onlookers anxiously awaiting justice. During the trial, the prosecution meticulously presented their evidence, aiming to prove Angela's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. They showcased the pillow used to suffocate Mildred Librilla, expertly linking it to Angela through DNA analysis. They also called upon witnesses, including neighbors who had heard heated arguments between Angela and Mildred, as well as medical professionals who testified to the extent of Mildred's physical abuse. Defense attorney Michael Carl Shrew, renowned for his ability to empathize with his clients, fought tirelessly to present Angela's side of the story. He painted a picture of a woman pushed to her limits, trapped in an abusive relationship with her mother-in-law. Shrew argued that Angela's actions were driven by desperation and a genuine fear for her family's safety. After days of intense deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Angela Librilla was found guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom erupted in a mix of emotions, with some expressing relief that justice had been served, while others questioned whether Angela's desperate circumstances should have been taken into account. Judge Mary Breedlove, known for her strict adherence to the law, delivered the sentencing. Angela was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom fell silent as the weight of the sentence sank in. Some found solace in the closure the sentencing brought, believing that Mildred's death had been avenged. Others, however, felt a sense of unease, wondering if Angela's punishment truly reflected the complexity of the situation. Following the conclusion of the trial, the lives of all those involved were forever altered. Angela Librilla, now serving a life sentence, grappled with the profound repercussions of her actions. Confined within the walls of the Centerville Correctional Facility, Angela faced the daunting task of rebuilding her life behind bars. The routine of prison life became her new reality, as she navigated the daily challenges and sought solace in the limited freedoms she still possessed. Meanwhile, Jack Librilla, finally liberated from the clutches of his domineering mother, embarked on a journey of self-discovery and healing. With the weight of his mother's influence lifted, Jack focused on rebuilding his shattered life and protecting his family from further harm. He immersed himself in his work at the local Pizza Hut, a popular dining choice for this Midwestern community starved of places to eat. Jana Briscoe, burdened by the weight of guilt and regret, embarked on a path of redemption. Haunted by her secret affair with Mildred and the role it played in the tragic events that unfolded, Jana sought solace in the support of her family and the guidance of a therapist. In the aftermath of the trial, questions lingered in the minds of many. Some questioned whether justice had truly been served, while others found solace in the closure the trial brought. The impact of Mildred's death reverberated throughout the community, serving as a stark reminder of the destructive power of control and the length some will go to escape it. Rick Romert Rales was 44 years old. He worked as a real estate agent in Guelph, Ontario. He was very good at his job, known for being friendly and outgoing. Rick loved to make people laugh with his jokes and pranks. One of his most famous pranks was when he forced his wife, Carly, to get a haircut by getting her down to the floor and shaving off all of her hair. He posted a video of the prank on social media, and it went viral, getting thousands of views. This prank caused a lot of tension between Rick and Carly. Rick lived in a nice house in Guelph with Carly and their 2 kids, Ensure and Wheels. Rick went to school in Guelph and later studied business at a local college. He married Carly when he was 30, and they had been together for 14 years. Rick's parents, Tom and Betty, lived nearby and were very close to him and his family. He also had a brother named Tim, who lived in Toronto. Rick was very active on social media, especially on Facebook and YouTube. He loved sharing funny videos and pictures of his life. He had a lot of followers who enjoyed his content. Rick was always thinking of new ideas for pranks and jokes to share with his audience. He liked to stay current with trends and often talked about popular shows and events, like Canadian Idol and hockey. In the days before his death, Rick was busy with work, meeting clients and showing houses. He was also planning more pranks and spending time with his family. Rick seemed happy and full of energy. He had a big personality and was always the center of attention at gatherings. Rick's dream was to become even more famous and successful. He wanted to grow his social media following and maybe even get his own TV show. He often talked about these dreams with his friends and family. Rick was a very driven person, always working towards his goals. Despite his playful nature, Rick cared deeply about his family. He wanted to provide a good life for Carly and their children. However, the forced haircut prank had caused a big rift between him and Carly. She felt humiliated and angry, which led to a lot of tension in their home. This tension was still present in the days leading up to Rick's tragic death. On January 15, 2009, the weather in Guelph, Ontario was cold and snowy. It was early in the morning, around 7:00 a.m. The sun was just starting to rise, but the sky was still gray. Carly Romert-Rales, Rick's wife, woke up and went to check on Rick. She found him in their bathroom. He was naked and lying in the bathtub, which was filled with water. A hairdryer was in the water, and it looked like Rick had been electrocuted. Carly was in shock. She screamed and called 911 right away. Her voice was shaky as she tried to explain what had happened. She told the operator that her husband was not breathing and that it looked like he had been electrocuted. The 911 operator tried to calm her down and told her to stay on the line until help arrived. The first person to arrive at the scene was Officer Alan Carter. He was a local police officer who had been with the Guelph Police Department for 10 years. When he entered the house, he saw Carly sitting on the floor, crying and shaking. She pointed to the bathroom and told him that Rick was in there. Officer Carter went into the bathroom and saw Rick in the tub. It was clear that Rick was dead. Carly was very upset and kept saying that Rick's death was an accident. The police were not sure what to think. They needed to find out more about what had happened that morning and whether Rick's death was really an accident or something more sinister. As news of Rick's death spread, the community was shocked. Rick was well known in Guelph, and many people couldn't believe that he was gone. His friends and family were heartbroken, and everyone wanted to know what had really happened in that bathroom on that cold January morning. The Guelph police arrived quickly at the Romert-Rales home on January 15, 2009. Detective Collie McKinney led the investigation. Detective McKinney was known for her sharp mind and had worked on many important cases in Guelph. She and her team immediately began to carefully examine the scene. The bathroom where Rick was found was very clean, except for the bathtub. Rick's body was in the tub, and the water was still. The hairdryer was floating in the water, and it was clear that he had been electrocuted. Detective McKinney thought the scene looked suspiciously neat, as if someone had set it up to look like an accident. Detective McKinney and her team used various tools to gather evidence. They took photographs of the bathroom and the rest of the house. They also collected fingerprints and any other physical evidence they could find. They tested the hairdryer to see if it was working properly and looked for any signs of tampering. The police talked to Carly Romert-Rales first. She was very upset and kept saying that Rick's death was an accident. She explained that Rick often played pranks and that he might have been trying to do something funny with the hairdryer. However, the police found it hard to believe that Rick would risk his life for a prank. Next, Detective McKinney talked to neighbors and friends. They wanted to know if anyone had seen or heard anything unusual that morning. Some neighbors mentioned that they had heard Carly and Rick arguing the night before. Others said that Rick had been acting strangely lately, posting more and more prank videos on social media. The police also looked into Rick's social media accounts. They watched the video of the forced haircut prank he had done on Carly. The video showed a laughing Rick pinning Carly down to the floor and shaving off her hair while she screamed and cried. This video had caused a lot of tension in their marriage, and the police thought it might be a motive for Carly to harm Rick. As they continued to investigate, the police found more evidence that suggested Rick's death was not an accident. They discovered that the bathroom floor was not wet, which could have caused Rick to slip. They also found some footprints that didn't match Rick's or Carly's shoes. This made them think that someone else might have been in the house that morning. Detective McKinney and her team worked tirelessly to piece together the clues. They used all the tools at their disposal, including forensic analysis and interviews with everyone who knew Rick and Carly. They were determined to find out the truth about what had happened in that bathroom on the cold January morning. The investigation was complex, and the police knew they had to be thorough. Every detail mattered, and they were determined to uncover the truth behind Rick Romert-Rales' tragic death. The first suspect in Rick Romert-Rales' death was his wife, Carly Romert-Rales. Carly was 36 years old and worked as an interior designer. She was known for being very talented and creative, with a keen eye for detail. Her work was popular among high-end clients, and she had a good reputation in Guelph. Carly was usually calm and mild-mannered, but the forced haircut prank had pushed her to her limits. It caused a significant strain on her marriage and her relationship with her young children, Insure and Wheels, named by people on the internet as part of a publicity stunt. The police brought Carly in for questioning. Detective Collie McKinney led the interrogation. Carly looked tired and upset, but she tried to stay composed. She explained that Rick's prank had humiliated her. He had shared the video of the prank on social media, and it had gone viral. Carly felt embarrassed and angry. Despite this, she insisted that she had not hurt Rick. She said that his death was a terrible accident. Detective McKinney asked Carly about the night before Rick's death. Carly admitted that they had argued. She was still angry about the prank, and Rick didn't seem to understand how much he had hurt her. Carly said that after the argument, Rick went to sleep in the guest room, and she stayed in their bedroom. The police also asked Carly about the morning she found Rick's body. Carly said she woke up early and went to check on Rick. She found him in the bathtub, with a hairdryer in the water. She was in shock and didn't know what to do, so she called 911. Carly's stories seemed consistent, but the police needed more evidence. To learn more, Detective McKinney and her team looked into Carly's background. They found that Carly had a clean record and was well-liked by her friends and clients. However, they also discovered that Carly had been under a lot of stress lately. The forced haircut prank had not only hurt her emotionally, but also affected her work. Some clients had seen the video and canceled their contracts with her. The police also examined Carly's social media accounts. They saw that she had posted several messages expressing her frustration and sadness after the prank. Some of her friends had commented, offering support and telling her to stay strong. The messages showed that Carly was deeply affected by what Rick had done. Despite Carly's claims that she was innocent, the police knew they had to consider all possibilities. They continued to investigate, looking for any clues that might prove or disprove Carly's involvement in Rick's death. They were determined to find the truth and bring justice to Rick and his family. The second suspect in Rick Romertrail's death was Mike Chattelvecchio, Rick's business partner. Mike was 40 years old and known for being very practical and business-focused. He was the serious one in their partnership, balancing out Rick's playful nature. However, Mike had become increasingly frustrated with Rick's lack of professionalism and the distractions caused by Rick's social media antics. One of Rick's pranks had even forced Mike to make out with Carly on camera, adding to his embarrassment. The police brought Mike in for questioning. Detective Collie McKinney led the interrogation. Mike looked calm but tired. He explained that he had been working hard to keep their real estate business afloat. The recent financial issues had put a lot of stress on him. He admitted that Rick's constant pranks and social media stunts were causing problems for the business. However, Mike insisted that he would never hurt Rick. Detective McKinney asked Mike about his relationship with Rick. Mike said that they had been friends for many years and had built their business together. He admitted that Rick's behavior had become more erratic lately, especially after the haircut prank. Mike said he had talked to Rick about focusing more on their business and less on social media, but Rick didn't seem to take him seriously. The police also asked Mike about his whereabouts on the morning of Rick's death. Mike said he had been at home, preparing for a meeting with a client. He had no alibi, but he seemed confident that he had nothing to hide. Detective McKinney found Mike's demeanor interesting. He was calm and collected, which made her wonder if he was hiding something. The police looked into Mike's background. They found that he had a clean record and was respected in the business community. However, they also discovered that Mike had been dealing with a lot of stress. The financial issues and Rick's antics were taking a toll on him. Some colleagues mentioned that Mike had expressed frustration with Rick's behavior and had even considered ending their partnership. The police examined Mike's emails and phone records. They found several messages where Mike had complained about Rick's pranks and the impact they were having on their business. In one email, Mike had written to a friend saying, "I don't know how much more of Rick's nonsense I can take." This showed that Mike was at his wit's end. Despite Mike's claims of innocence, the police knew they had to consider him a serious suspect. They continued to gather evidence and question other people who knew Mike and Rick. They needed to find out if Mike's frustration had reached a breaking point and if he had a motive to harm his business partner. The investigation into Mike's involvement in Rick's death was complex. The police were determined to uncover the truth and ensure that justice was served. The third suspect in Rick Romertrail's death was Emily Harris Kang, Rick's social media manager. Emily was 22 years old, ambitious, and very tech-savvy. She helped Rick grow his online presence and loved the thrill of internet fame. Emily enjoyed the benefits that came with managing a popular social media account, but her relationship with Rick was complicated. They had a secret affair, and Emily was jealous of Rick's wife, Carly. The police brought Emily in for questioning. Detective Collie McKinney led the interrogation. Emily looked nervous but tried to stay calm. She explained that she had worked closely with Rick for over a year. She helped him plan and post his prank videos, including the infamous forced haircut prank. Emily said that Rick was always full of ideas and that she was just following his lead. Detective McKinney asked Emily about her relationship with Rick. Emily hesitated but eventually admitted that they had been romantically involved. She said that Rick had promised to leave Carly for her, but he never did. This made her feel used and betrayed. Emily insisted that she cared about Rick and would never hurt him. The police also asked Emily about her whereabouts on the morning of Rick's death. Emily said she was at her apartment, working on new content for Rick's social media accounts. She provided her computer as evidence, showing the work she had done that morning. Detective McKinney noted that Emily's alibi seemed solid, but decided to dig deeper. The police looked into Emily's background. They found that she had always been a high achiever, excelling in school and earning a scholarship to a local university. Emily was very active on social media and had a large following of her own. However, they also discovered that Emily had a history of jealousy and had been involved in several heated arguments with other women over Rick. Despite Emily's claims of innocence, the police knew they had to consider her a serious suspect. They continued to gather evidence and question other people who knew her and Rick. They needed to find out if Emily's jealousy and frustration had driven her to harm Rick. The investigation into Emily's involvement in Rick's death was thorough. The police were determined to uncover the truth and ensure that justice was served. On January 20, 2009, the weather in Guelph, Ontario was cold and snowy. It was around 10 o'clock a.m. when the police received a call from a neighbor of the Railes family. The neighbor had found something unusual while walking their dog near a park close to the house. The neighbor noticed a small hidden camera in the bushes and knew the camera hadn't been there before and called the police immediately. Detective Collie McKinney and her team arrived quickly. They carefully retrieved the camera and took it to the police station for examination. The team was surprised to find that the camera was still working and had recorded footage. They hoped it might provide new clues about Rick's death. At the station, the police reviewed the footage. It discovered that Rick had installed several hidden cameras around the house. He had set them up after the forced haircut prank, suspecting that Carly might try to get revenge. The footage showed the night of January 14 when Carly and Rick had a heated argument about the prank. Rick had accused Carly of being too sensitive, while Carly had expressed how humiliated and hurt she felt. The most crucial part of the footage was from the morning of January 15. The camera in the bathroom showed Rick entering the tub with the hairdryer. At first, it seemed like he was playing another prank. However, as Rick plugged in the hairdryer, he slipped on the wet floor and accidentally knocked the hairdryer into the tub, causing his own electrocution. The footage revealed that Rick's death was not a premeditated murder. Detective McKinney and her team were shocked by this discovery. They realized that Rick had set up the cameras to catch Carly, but instead they had captured his own fatal mistake. This new evidence changed the direction of the investigation completely. The police called Carly to the station to show her the footage. Carly was devastated and broke down in tears. She couldn't believe that Rick's death was an accident and not a result of foul play. Detective McKinney explained to Carly that Rick had set up the cameras because he was afraid she might retaliate for the prank. Carly was heartbroken, knowing that Rick had mistrusted her and that his actions had led to his own death. With this new evidence, the police were able to close the case. They informed the community and the media about the true cause of Rick's death. The community was relieved but saddened by the tragic accident. The investigation had revealed the truth, and the police have ensured that justice was served. When the police announced that Rick Railes' death was an accident, the community of Guelph, Ontario, was both shocked and relieved. The news conference on January 25, 2009, explained the events leading up to Rick's death. However, the authorities decided to proceed with a trial to bring all facts to light. The trial began in early February 2009. The prosecutor, Alan Allen, 45, was known for his no-nonsense approach. He was determined to present all the evidence, including Rick's emails and the footage from the hidden cameras. Alan argued that while Rick's death was accidental, it was important to understand the full context and the events leading up to it. The defense attorney, Margaret Golly, 38, was equally determined to clear Carly Romergrail's name. Margaret was compassionate and had a reputation for defending those wrongfully accused. She presented evidence of Carly's character and how the prank deeply affected her emotionally, but did not make her a murderer. During the trial, the courtroom was tense. Carly sat quietly, supported by her family. Rick's friends and family watched the proceedings, their faces showing a mix of sadness and relief. The prosecutor played the footage showing Rick slipping and knocking the hairdryer into the bathtub. This was the key evidence that confirmed his death was an accident. The jury deliberated for 2 days. On February 15, 2009, they returned with their verdict. They found that no one was guilty of murder and that Rick's death was indeed an accident. The judge echoed this sentiment in his closing remarks, emphasizing the tragic nature of the event and how it was a result of a series of unfortunate incidents rather than intentional harm. Carly's reaction to the verdict was a mix of relief and sorrow. She was grateful to be exonerated, but deeply mourned her husband. The community's response was supportive. Many people offered their condolences to Carly and her children, Insure and Wheels, understanding the emotional turmoil they had endured. The trial's conclusion brought a sense of closure to Rick's family and friends. They struggled with the loss but found some comfort in knowing the truth. Carly decided to move away from Gulf to start fresh with her children, hoping to rebuild their lives away from the memories of Rick's tragic death. The police officers involved in the case, especially Detective Collie McKinney, felt a sense of accomplishment for uncovering the truth. However, they also felt the weight of the tragedy and the impact it had on everyone involved. The trial's verdict and sentencing brought an end to the legal process, allowing everyone to begin the slow process of healing and moving forward. After the trial ended, the people involved in Rick Romergrail's case tried to move on with their lives. Carly Romergrail, who had been cleared of any wrongdoing, decided to leave Guelph, Ontario. She felt that starting fresh in a new place would be best for her and her children, Insure and Wheels. In March 2009, Carly moved to Toronto, where she continued her work as an interior designer. She focused on rebuilding her life and creating a stable environment for her kids. Mike Chetelvecchio, Rick's business partner, was also deeply affected by the events. After the trial, he took some time off to reflect and reconsider his future. By mid-2009, Mike decided to step away from the real estate business. He sold his shares and moved to Vancouver to start anew, focusing on a different career path. Mike wanted to leave behind the memories of the stressful partnership and the tragic loss of his friend. Emily Harris-Kang, the social media manager, found it hard to cope with the loss and the scandal surrounding Rick's death. She took a break from social media to focus on her mental health. By the end of 2009, Emily had decided to pursue further education, enrolling in a marketing program at a local university. She aimed to rebuild her career with a fresh perspective and new skills. Detective Collie McKinney and her team continued their work in the Guelph Police Department. The case had been a significant challenge for them, and solving it brought a sense of accomplishment. Detective McKinney was praised for her thorough investigation and dedication to uncovering the truth. She used the experience to mentor new officers, emphasizing the importance of attention to detail and perseverance in solving cases. Rick's family and friends had mixed feelings about the outcome. While they were relieved to know that his death was an accident, the loss remained painful. They struggled with the fact that Rick's own actions had led to his tragic end. Over time, they found some comfort in remembering the good times they shared with him. The community of Guelph also felt the impact of the case. The news had shocked the town, but the trial and its conclusion helped bring a sense of closure. People were more cautious and aware of the importance of addressing personal conflicts and mental health issues. By the end of 2009, those involved in Rick's life had begun to heal and move forward. The case remained a reminder of how quickly life can change and the importance of compassion and understanding in difficult times. This case is a stark reminder of how quickly a practical joke can spiral into tragedy. Rick's playful nature and Carly's desperate reaction led to a heartbreaking series of events, forever altering the lives of everyone involved.